What is up, everyone, and welcome back to some more Higurashi. In the previous recording, we wrapped up chapter 6. It was absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. Start to finish, enjoyed everything it had to offer. Thus far, it is without a doubt my favorite chapter. But today, we're going to kick up and start chapter 7. Obviously, I know nothing about it other than what I mentioned earlier is the fact that its desktop icon is the unknown purple haired girl. So I assume we're going to learn what her deal is with this. Um, Beyond that, I'm very excited to see what else this story has in store. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. Oh, the broken fragments. The final truth. The massacre chapter. Oh. This story introduces the unit inside and out, using all the actors. This is no longer a story, it is a public autopsy for all to join. As they say, after loving someone, cut open their belly and eat their organs. It's the same with stories. The difficulty is quite mild, well suited for those with pride. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Okay. What are you doing? I don't see you playing by yourself that often. All you could do before was to nod to my questions. Since when do you have your own will? I'm glad. Finally have a sister or a brother. Whichever you are. I used to be an existence of nothingness, just like you. One day I began to have my own identity, my own thoughts, and eventually, my own body. So it's not a surprise to see you in possession of your own will. Welcome to this vast yet tiny world, my sister. You might be my brother, but let me call you my sister until I know for sure. This is an endless, eternal, and infinite world. That doesn't mean it's boundlessly vast. I suppose you could describe it like a ring with a small diameter. While the ring is an eternal, endlessly looping world, that doesn't mean it contains infinite space. Yes, in short, this world is eternally sealed. The future is supposed to be an infinite weave of countless choices. Yet, for whatever reason, our world always ends in death. If I were to compare it to something, perhaps a maze of fate would be appropriate. Looping through the same moments forever steadily grows harder and more dejecting, eventually producing something like me. Then, as that draws further on, even one like you is born, and eventually, this world may be filled with your sisters too. After that, we'll build a colony inside of it, and once we lose our interest in this maze, Rika will disappear from this world. Looks like you still cling to this narrow world, Rika. Though I lost interest long ago. Which is why I'm truly glad you were born for me to talk to. So what are you doing? Are you collecting fragments of memory? Whoa. Whoa, that's a trippy fucking visual. Yo! Nah, that's just cool to look at, man. Fuck, set that as the fucking desktop background. That shit kinda cool. Why everyone gotta be upside down, though? Like, I see the not polygon, that's the shape. There's a word like polygon, but for 3D objects, I forget what it is. But the shape. I see it rotating. Why is everyone upside down? Oh, wait. Oh, no, we almost had someone right side up. I saw Reina's outfit, and I was like, wait. But then, like, never got to her face, so it's like, oh, I guess we'll never know. Anyway. There's only 5 or 6 right now. Must still be fun for you, though. There used to be more fragments long ago. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness. Now these are the only ones that remain clear. Oh, that's not how you're supposed to use it. See? Try and hold it up to the light. All of that is the life of Rika and its end. That one is the cube. The cube. Forget the shape, we got the cube. Oh, I remember that one. That's the world when Keiichi was cursed. Those fragments are like books to me, so I titled that one the Onikakushi chapter. Do you remember what happened in that one? Good. That makes things easier. In Onikakushi, Keiichi Maibara was consumed by the darkness. He couldn't accept the kind words his friend offered him, and eventually beat them to death not knowing of their kindness. We were all killed after that anyway. That had nothing to do with his story, though. That fragment is the Watanagashi chapter. Shion Sanozaki was cursed in that one. She killed many people out of revenge for her boyfriend's disappearance, as he went missing in 1982. Rika worked so hard, but she was captured at the end and she was tortured to death. That's why she chose to commit suicide in the Miyakashi chapter, because things were going to turn out the same way. That fragment over there is called the Tatarigoroshi chapter. Satoko's uncle came back and locked her up inside her house. Oh, that's a lot of shapes. Or sides. It's one shape, but many sides. That was the worst world of all. Yeah, I could believe that. There was nothing Rika was able to do in that world. Whenever Satoko's uncle comes back, Rika usually just gives up on that world. Fortunately, Satoko's uncle doesn't come back that frequently. That one is called the Tsumi Horaboshi chapter. Rika was there until just a moment ago. Reina Ryugi was possessed in that world. It was pretty exciting to see her take over the whole school. It surprised me to learn that Keiichi Maibara had a memory of the other worlds, just like we do. It was pretty amazing, but then again, most of us have some kind of memory like that. We all have an imaginary world within us, some idea of what would have happened if you did things differently. It's like the strange feeling you get when you do something for the first time, but it feels like you've done it before. Everyone has a memory of an imaginary world in their mind, but the memory is not always that clear. It's not surprising, really. You're special enough to be able to see those fragments of memory. It's probably very difficult for you to understand how special you really are. You were born into a world where it's natural for you to see these fragments. I was originally born into the normal world. I didn't know until recently that I could collect these fragments of memory. You grabbed those fragments just because you could. I didn't know how to do that for a long time. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're not interested in hearing my story. Huh? What's wrong? What are you curious about? Oh? You're curious as to why so many different incidents occur in the same world? It's very interesting, isn't it? Why do you think that's the case? Let's think about it together. Thinking is the first step towards playing a game. The main character among Rika's group of friends is Keiichi Maibara. In Onikakushi, he was possessed by suspicion and killed Reina Ryuga and Mion Sanozaki. If that was an inevitable event, he would be killing them in every world. In other words, what Keiichi Maibara did in Onikakushi was not inevitable. Okay. Indeed, the only thing that's inevitable is Keiichi Maibara's role. If Keiichi Maibara was someone with a naturally suspicious heart, he would take the same actions in every world. Okay, I see what you're getting at. So Keiichi has potential to be... Okay, but that didn't happen. It's true that Keiichi Maibara is both passionate and easily convinced of anything, but it's rare for him to exhibit the kind of rage he displayed in Onikakushi. In other words, even though something might seem inevitable in one world, but that may not be the case if you compare it to a different one. If something really is inevitable, it will happen for sure in every life. That's what true inevitability is like. It's very important that you know that. When you compare the different worlds, what's common among all of them is the truth. I mean, okay. I like the one commonality that I know is across every single one is the death of Tomitake. You could potentially argue the death of Takano, though in chapter 1 it's never like confirmed she's dead. You can kind of assume from all the later chapters that she might as well be, but we don't know. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe she didn't die. Maybe she didn't die in chapter 1, and maybe it's some shit she pulled that led to Keiichi's aggression in that chapter, to why he was totally inconsolable, could not see through his own delusions, and did what he did to his friends. Because that's something you definitely wouldn't see in any of the later chapters, right? Like they just said, for Keiichi to be that, enraged and aggravated is so rare to happen. There's also the one chapter where Takano's death is not straight up confirmed. Something to think about there. Understand? Like I said, what seems inevitable in one life could just be a random event in another. And then, like I've brought up in the last recording, but I'll definitely say it again. As far as we know, the great disaster does not happen in chapter 2 or 5. Right? Thanks to what they just told us, chapter 5 is different from chapter 2. It just played out very similarly. The only real difference being that Rika took her own life because she knew it was going to end the same way regardless. But in both those chapters, as far as we can tell, the great disaster never happens. So that in and of itself isn't inevitable either. From what I can tell. The club activities that Mion Sanazaki suggests are a good example. If Mion Sanazaki had a strong inclination toward playing certain games, he would be playing them in every world. But in reality, you participate in different activities in most of them. That means the games they play in the club are randomly decided by Mion Sanazaki. We know that now because we've been through many different lives. Those who only live in one world can't see if the event in question is inevitable or random. Those who only live once can't predict what's going on in Mion Sanazaki's mind, but we can. Although the activities are random, Mion Sanazaki calls us together for the club meeting almost every day in every life. I can see that Mion Sanazaki holds a strong will towards having the club meeting. Mion Sanazaki always wants to play with the other club members, but she doesn't know what to play. See, we can read Mion Sanazaki's mind just by simply examining these fragments. With this alone, we can see part of who Mion Sanazaki really is. Let me talk a bit more about Keiichi Maibara. For those who only live once, the world of the Onakashi chapter is nothing but a story where Keiichi suffered mysterious hallucinations and beat his friends to death. For them, there's nothing beyond that fact. We, however, can compare different fragments and find out something they could never see. As a result, we know that the murder of his friends was not inevitable. I told you that just earlier. In fact, while there are about 5 or 6 pieces in front of you, he only kills his friends in one of them. That means we can roughly conclude that the possibility of Keiichi Maibara triggers the tragedy is less than 20% and is almost a fluke. This means that amongst the countless worlds, Keiichi Maibara causing the tragedy is an unimportant factor. Now, can you find the common thread to be drawn from here? Ah, you found it already? No wonder you were born in this world. You're quick to learn the knack for playing with building blocks. Didn't figure that out for a while. I was born in the normal world, so I could only see things from a single world's perspective. I was too obsessed with the fact that Keiichi Maibara caused the tragedy, so I had trouble finding it. Right. That's exactly right. You see it. The Onakashi, Watanagashi, Miyakashi, and Sumiyoraboshi chapters all have something in common. Oh? Do they now? Because, like, you throw Sumiyoraboshi kind of throws me for a loop. Because, like I said, with 2 and 5, which is Watanagashi and Miyakashi, there's the thing about the great disaster, right? And I mentioned that, chapter 1, which was Onakashi, never touches on that, but also that, like, you could guess that maybe it happens later on, but obviously if it's not explicitly stated, you could argue it's not inevitable. But Sumiyoraboshi, like, I suppose it was from an extras scene where Akasaka shows up and he talks about the events of Sumiyoraboshi when, within the sealed off area of Hinamizawa, right? Indicating that the disaster had happened. Huh. Like, I'm sure it's going to tell me here shortly. I'm just curious. That's where my mind immediately goes when I see 1, 2, and 5. Chapter 6 really throws me for a loop here. What is something that all those chapters have in common? Fuck, you got me. If it isn't related to the, great disaster or whatever, someone in the group becomes violent because of dark and paranoid thoughts. Okay. Right, because of paranoid thoughts. Okay. Right. I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Keiichi gets violent in chapter 3 as well, but that's not out of paranoia, that's out of self-defense. Well, not self-defense, out of some sense of justice, I guess, is how I would phrase it, I guess. Yeah, there's nothing. The violence in that one isn't built out of paranoia like it is with 1, 2, 5, and 6. Yeah. In each world, either Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, or Reina Ryugu became violent as their delusions grew stronger. Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, and Reina Ryugu are all my close friends, but they're all born and raised differently. So just out of curiosity, I wonder what the difference is in chapter 3 to where that doesn't happen. Right? Is it just random happenstance, or is there like a factor that keeps it from happening? The only common factor is that they all live in Hinamizawa. I just said it not too long ago, though. When we peer through these fragments of multiple worlds, the consistent phenomena become our facts, and the chance phenomena hold little meaning. Okay. In other words, the unrelated individual culprits are not all that important. To go further, the violence of their crimes also bears no meaning. Keiichi Maibara beat his friends to death, Shion Sonozaki killed the central people of the 3 families, and Reina Ryugu took over the school. They were all different. There's nothing in common there. In fact, a very, very important truth is that while the culprit and crimes are decided at random, their process of growing paranoid until they resort to violence is always constant. That is true. The suspect changes every time, but the process does not. After comparing the different worlds, this is the truth I found. This is one truth that is common to all the worlds of Hinamizawa. The rule is that a random person becomes violent under the influence of paranoid thoughts. This is Rule X. A random person becomes violent under the influence of paranoid thoughts. If that were the case... Yeah, common to all the worlds of Hinamizawa. Then in chapter 3, Keiichi himself does become violent. Is it Takano? Because we do know, right? Because after Keiichi buries Teppei, right? And he's like walking along the road, Takano, like, shows up, ends up giving him a ride home and whatnot. And, he can tell they share like this moment where he feels like, she's hiding some dark secret too. And he mentions that she has the bike in her back seat, which looks a lot like Tomitake's. So maybe we didn't see it, but maybe it still happened. Though then again, that kind of argument could still apply to other things I had brought up before. Because otherwise, I don't know who would have gotten violent out of Well, I suppose at the very end, you could argue that it was Satoko who began to fear Keiichi, especially after Keiichi admits that he, killed her uncle and whatnot, and then they discover Rika's body. Satoko herself starts to get very paranoid about Keiichi and ends up, pushing him off the bridge. Yeah. Honestly, you could argue that Satoko was the one who became paranoid and violent right at the very end of the story. It definitely wasn't a key focus like it was in the other chapters, but you could argue it still happened. Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, and Reina Ryugu. Pieces with no particular connection, have the potential to succumb to that rule with random probability. I don't know what the probability is that those pieces will be ensnared by that rule. Perhaps there is some rule to that too. Is it because these three are all close in age? Or is it because they all live in Hinamizawa? Well, we're not detectives or police officers. This is not something that a small girl like us, Rika, can easily figure out. At least we know now that there's a mysterious rule in the world of Hinamizawa. People who only live in one world have no way of knowing that. I'm proud of myself for figuring that out. I guess for you it's not particularly surprising though. Huh? What did you say? That's right. If something is common among all worlds, that means it's fated to happen. Some events quickly come to mind, don't they? Right. Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are always killed in those worlds. Well, like I said, Tomitake definitely is. You could assume Takano is, but it was never outright confirmed for us in Chapter 1. They say she disappeared, right? Because she was the one believed to be demoned away. But it was never outright confirmed that she was dead. On top of that, they emerged in exactly the same way in every world. Again, Tomitake definitely is. Unless there was a moment in Chapter 1 where they actually said something that I completely don't remember, but as far as I know, she just goes missing. Her body's never discovered. So I guess at the very least, she never shares that information with Keiichi, I guess? In other words, unlike our previous rule with its variability, their murders are thoroughly planned out by someone with a strong will. Right. So that does not fit with the mysterious vague Rule X that leads a random individual to violence. After all, they're always murdered, regardless of who falls to Rule X. Therefore, there's another rule to these worlds, a rule that says Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano will get killed on the night of Watanagashi. Let's call it Rule Y. Okay. 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 There's Alright, I gotta come clean with y'all. Alright, I gotta come clean with y'all. So, in the previous recording session, someone left a comment saying like, oh, it's interesting that Takano's little scrapbook that influenced Reina, it was called, File 34, which if you spell out the number 34 using Greek numerals, you use the characters Lambda and Delta, which obviously the character Lambda Delta from Umineko. And I knew there was like a connection there, but like somewhere in the back of my head, I remembered like, oh yeah, doesn't Lambda Delta share a voice actress with a character in Higurashi? And so, in my curiosity, I looked that up. Thankfully, the wiki page it took me to, I was right. She definitely does share a voice actress, but the character she shares a voice actress with apparently is a massive spoiler, and thankfully the wiki page covers up any and all spoilers. The web page it takes you just straight up says, this page contains massive story spoilers, click at your own risk. So obviously I clicked away. But I do know a certain character's name, and I did see a image of said character. So I think I might be able to see, because even if we consider that Takano disappeared in Chapter 1, but her death was not outright confirmed, you could still argue that Takano died that night. There is still a case to be made there with that little piece of information that I have. Don't you see how funny this is? Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are killed in every world, right? Every time, the character who gets cursed always thinks that their deaths have something to do with the danger that's awaiting them. The fact that someone turns violent, Rule X, and Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano's deaths, Rule Y, are supposed to be two independent rules. But they all tend to link them together. Of course, one could say that's how they became ensnared in the spell of paranoia leading them to violence to begin with. But do you think, in their paranoia, that they notice someone is trying to lead them to link those rules together? Oishi? They notice someone is trying to lead them to link those rules together. I mean, yeah, if we look... Fuck, I think that is the case. If you look at both Keiichi, Shion, and Reina, those three specifically that they keep mentioning, like, the one constant that always, like, leads them to, like, for... leads them into, like, thinking too much about things, or looking too deeply into things, or believing things are connected and whatnot, it's always Oishi. Oishi shows up, and he, like, spills all this information to someone, and then they get paranoid over it, because that happened with Keiichi. After the death of Takano and Tomitake, he goes to Keiichi, he tells him things, and then Keiichi gets paranoid, blah, 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 blah. And then, after Satoshi disappears, Shion and Oishi kind of strike up a deal to, like, fill each other in on information and whatnot. And Oishi does feed her information, like, about how, Satoshi was seen at, like, a station, at one of the train stations or something, or he was seen being approached by someone else, something like that. He feeds her this, feeds her this information. That extra information leads to her, or maybe not leads to her, but does assist in the development of her paranoia. And the same thing with Reina. She gets singled out by Oishi, like, in a reverse situation as what happened to Keiichi. And while he's not the main source that fuels Reina's paranoia, right? A lot of it comes from Takano's scrapbook. But what Oishi does tell her doesn't help her situation at all. It definitely lends to her delusions. So I think, like, with Keiichi in chapter 1, Oishi is, like, directly connected to, like, what, spawned Keiichi's delusions. But then with Shion and Reina, there was something else already in play that was, like, twisting their minds a bit, right? And Oishi's inclusion into the story, Oishi, coming in with whatever information he has, twists things even further. Yes, whoever the piece leading them is, they are the one making the stage called Hinamizawa very complicated. You should have noticed at least 2 suspicious people. 2? Do you know who I'm talking about? Okay, so obviously I think of Oishi. Who else is trying to make people believe things are connected? Who else is trying to make people believe things are connected? Well, I guess you could argue Oreo, right? Because that's kind of what Mion was saying in the previous chapter, like how the Sonozaki just acts like they're responsible for everything, right? So they want you to think everything's connected because they want you to think they're in control of everything and whatnot. So, ironically enough, it's like these 2 people who are constantly butting heads, Oreo and Oishi. That's right. Takano. Interesting. Well, that's the thing. They're talking about Rule X and Rule Y, right? That's kind of why I ruled out Takano, right? Because when you talk about the 2 rules they've established thus far, is that, like, someone, becomes paranoid and turns violent, and then Tomitake and Takano's deaths are guaranteed. I'm thinking about whoever's doing it after Takano and Tomitake die, right? And that's always Oishi. Obviously, it's not Takano doing it after she dies. Takano when it comes to, like, the previous deaths, right? The previous Watanagashi deaths. What do they call them? The mysterious incidents or whatever the hell they call them. I forget what the actual way they refer to them are, but, like, the incidents from previous years, it's definitely Takano that makes you think that, like, they're all connected, right? Or Takano brings up the history of Onagafuchi. It makes you think, like, that has some connection to all the goings-ons within Hinamizawa in the present day. Like, she definitely helps twist the mind of whoever it is. Does she do that to Shion? Does she? I mean, I get, yeah, no, they definitely have some level of interaction. Yeah, obviously, yeah. Because Shion goes into the storehouse with Takano, right? And Takano starts spouting her shit there. Yeah, okay. So yeah, Takano definitely lends to the delusions of the characters for sure. When you compare previous fragments, the role of the piece known as Kuraudo Oishi becomes clear. He's a detective who's retiring this year, and he's in a hurry to solve the mystery of the series of deaths in Namizawa. Right, and he's so desperate to solve the cases that he's... After he retires, he'll have to move away from the village. That's why he's desperate to solve this case before he has to leave Hinamizawa. Yeah, he's desperate to solve it no matter what. So he's just trying to... He's looking for whatever connections he possibly can. He's not thinking too much about it because he absolutely wants to solve it and whatnot. Why is he so obsessed with the serial murders in Namizawa? That is a good question. Right? Because, you know, in the very beginning, I compared this kind of setup, right, with the mysterious deaths happening in a village and the festivals and whatnot. I compared it to, you know, some of the story beats from the Shell Part 2. And within there, you also have this older detective who's been trying to, you know, solve this mystery for years. And, you know, eventually there's a revelation as to why he himself was also so obsessed with solving the murders. Curious if it'll be a similar case. That's right. Oh, that's right, because he did know, right. He knew, he was, I don't know if necessarily friends, but he was definitely acquaintances with the first victim of the mysterious incidents. That is true. He did have some personal connection. It's because of the first murder involving the manager of the construction site. The victim was Oishi's close friend. Okay, see, close friend. You will see that if you look at the Himatsubushi chapter. Oishi was there when the dam conflict was at its peak. He saw how the Sonozaki family took control of the Onoguchi Guardians, and he believed that the Sonozaki family was pulling the strings behind the whole incident. That's why he always suspected that the Sonozaki family was behind the series of mysterious deaths regardless of the evidence or lack thereof. His personal biased belief, combined with his credibility as a police detective, affected the pitiable victims of persecution complexes in each world. As a result, the pitiful victims of Rule X come to accept the Sonozaki family as the identity of the unknown force their paranoia seeks. Shion Sonozaki's case was the most conspicuous one in that matter. So yes, if this piece, Oishi, didn't intervene, then perhaps the victims of Rule X wouldn't have resorted to such violence. So the role his piece plays is to indirectly cause the tragedy. Okay. I like this. So are they gonna like drop us into another story, but like they're kind of giving like all of us this information to think about, like here's kind of what Oishi's role tends to be in these stories, you know, and keep that in mind when you see how he acts in this next chapter. I don't know who named him this, but Oyashiro-sama's servant is the perfect nickname for Oishi. Yeah, right, the first time you hear that nickname, I was thinking about that too when they made the connection and all that, but the first time you hear that nickname, you think like, oh, he's got to be connected to whoever the higher ups are that are carrying out whatever act is being carried out. But yeah, no, it's because he always has this major influence on the people who become like these killers, that he kind of is, yeah, the servant. The other suspicious person is Mio Takano. One would assume the only role of her piece is to amuse herself with research into Onoguchi's dreadful history and to take pleasure in scaring others with those tales. However, just like Oishi, she also gives them the idea that the Sonozaki family is behind all the mysterious incidents that happen in the village. She interfered the most with Reina Ryugu, true. For Mio Takano, Reina Ryugu was the perfect prey, grasping at straws to try and identify the force she suspected. Ironically, however, Mio Takano always ends up getting killed at the end. If she had survived and seen Reina take over the school, she would have laughed long and loud. Now, have you realized that these two pieces and the roles they fulfill have their own rule too? They talk about the Sonozaki family, and the listeners always believe them. This is Rule Z, and what a humorous rule it is. You should already have an answer to this mystery in your fragments on hand. The fact is that the Sonozaki family always acts as if they are responsible, no matter if they are or not. They always pretend to be the villains in order to make sure that people continue to fear them. As a result, the villagers have believed that the Sonozaki family has been pulling the strings ever since the dam conflict ended. Kurada Oishi and Mio Takano were simply fooled by that rule. Actually, the whole village is fooled by it. Still, the more I think about it, the stranger the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa seems to me. Do you know why? Nearly all of the fragments of memories we have here are from 1983, correct? So I have no idea about the incidents from 1980 to 1982, correct? But it's likely that interpreting these murders as serial is simply a result of falling victim to Rule Z, believing that the Sonozaki family is pulling the strings behind everything. Yeah, and that's kind of the realization I came to in the previous chapter that, you know, like they said with the fucking card game in the very first chapter, sometimes you don't want to think too hard about it and accept the actual answer for what it is. And the fact is, like, they're probably not connected at all. In short, they may be trying to conflate those multiple crimes, which each happen for different reasons, into one big case. Well, I have no way of discerning the truth from the fragments here. Still, perhaps something lies in one of them. Each case was supposed to have been solved individually, after all. We don't know if that theory is sound or irrational, but it might surprisingly be an element we can't ignore. That reminds me, Shion said something intriguing in the Mayakashi chapter. That curse system she came up with. Right. About how Oreo just kind of like says something and the rest of the family carries it out. Something like that. She'll say something during a meeting without actually instructing someone to do something. Be like, oh, it'd be really nice if this were to happen. And then that way someone within the family does it, but Oreo herself can't be held accountable, and also she doesn't know who even did it, so she doesn't know who's accountable either. Her theory was that the villagers believed that they are allowed to kill an enemy of the village on the night of Watanagashi in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. Did she say that? And that this foundation of murder is allowed on that night alone is the true identity of the curse. Is that? I guess I misremember that, but sure. Since most of the fragments here are from 1983, there's nothing to back the validity of Shion's theory, but there are still interesting things about it. In other words, her theory is that the suspect is not the one who's committing the crime, it's the environment that's causing the murder. People in a single world tend to analyze a criminal's life to determine the process that led them to crime, but her idea is different. The real crime is committed not by the criminals, but by the environment. In other words, it may only be happenstance that Robber A committed the crime, and the environment of poverty may have created Robber B instead, or perhaps even Robber C. A may not even be a criminal in another world. Therefore, the real criminal is not A, but the environment that creates A, B, or C. And, well, while people in a single world may be able to reach such an idea, the widespread desire to place blame commonly causes A to be lynched by society while the environment that gave rise to A goes ignored. True. Did I confuse you? No, I get it. I'm sorry. Perhaps that example was actually hard to understand for you. Fuck you. It's easy for me to see it like that because I'm from the normal world. Let me make it simple for you. The culprit behind the tragedy in many worlds isn't individuals like Keiichi Maebara or Shion Sonozaki, but the environment. So Rule X is the true culprit at fault. You're earning good marks if you can grasp that, even if we don't know the identity of Rule X. And if you can grasp the three rules governing this stage called Hinamizawa, rules X, Y, and Z, let's see, can I remember them as of right now? Rule X is that someone turns violent out of paranoid delusions. Rule Y, I believe, is the deaths of Takano and Tomitake. The guaranteed deaths. Man, Rule Z was like the one they just told us. What the hell was Rule Z? Oh, the role of Oishi and Takano, right? No, okay, Rule Z is that it is connected to the rules of Oishi and Takano. The Rule Z is that when Oishi and Takano speak about the Sonozaki family, the listeners always believe them. Okay. Okay. So Rule X, someone will fall victim to paranoid delusions and turn violent. Rule Y, Tomitake and Takano are guaranteed to die. And Rule Z, when Oishi and Takano speak of the Sonozaki family, the listeners believe them. Okay, okay. Then you're earning very good marks. So long as you understand those rules, then if this is your first experienced world, you should easily find the truth without distraction. See? Isn't it fun? Merely 3 simple rules are interacting on the stage, creating a kaleidoscope of different worlds. This is probably a very unusual case. In other locations, you shouldn't be able to see such extreme variation even after looping through several worlds. It keeps me entertained just staying here and watching these worlds revolve. Anyway, there's one more fact we can understand from these fragments of worlds. This is the biggest problem we Rika Furudes are facing. The fact that Rika Furude always dies each time. Does she? Because chapter 1, well, once again, chapter 1 is like similar to like Takano's death, where it's like, we don't see it happen. It doesn't necessarily not happen, but we don't see it happen. Also, she didn't die in chapter 6 either. You say she dies each time, but in chapters 1 and 6, we did not see her die. I guess in chapter 6 they kind of go, oh, the disaster happened, and Rika Furude was there, so she's dead. Or wait, no. Did Akasaka say something about that? I don't think so, not that I remember. It's as if June 1983 is a dead end for her. Worse, there's no randomness to it, it's guaranteed to happen. In other words, it's the same pattern as the deaths of Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano. It's following the exact same rule, Rule Y. Tomitake Jiro and Takano Mio are always murdered on the night of Watanagashi. Furude Rika's date of death is not always the same, but she's always dead by the middle of June. Always? Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are probably attacked on their way home, so that's why it always happens on the same night. But for Rika Furude, it's different. She takes different actions in every world, and her lifestyle is very unpredictable. For that reason, the day of her death is not always the same. However, she always dies in June, because a similar, powerful conviction vows to kill her too. So we can assume that the same rule Y killing them is also the rule behind her death. Is the same person killing all 3 of them? I don't know if it's the same person, but it's highly likely the same rule is at work. Is it the same person, or the same organization? Is it the same views, the same goals? Rika's most important goal is to escape her deadly fate, but it doesn't mean that she just wants to leave the village and survive. She wants to live happily in the village. All of her friends must also be happy too. That's Rika's happy future. The ideal future she hopes for. It's tragic that we can't realize such a simple desire no matter how many times we repeat this. Though, it's a tragedy we're only able to perceive because we're beings capable of comparing the fragments from different worlds. By the way, I have some interesting information. Oh, please tell. While Rika is almost always killed by Rule Y, have you noticed that she's killed by Rule X in some worlds? Is that in reference to chapter 2? She's killed by someone who becomes delusional and violent? Because as far as I know, that's the only difference. And I guess chapter 5, but she takes her own life there. Right. It happened in the Watanagashi and the Miyakashi chapters. Yeah. Rika Furude committed suicide, but you can say she was more or less killed by Rule X via Shion Sonozaki in those worlds. In other words, this is a blunder for Rule Y. Rule Y is trying to kill Rika with a strong desire to achieve some aim, but she was killed before that as a result of the unrelated Rule X. That might have caused them to show some disturbance. If Rule Y's objective is simply to bury Rika, then that's not a problem. But if they have some objective beyond that, then... Oh, interesting. Because like I mentioned, chapter 2 and 5, the disaster doesn't happen, right? So also in that chapter then, there's no ritualistic death of Rika, right? She's not found dead at the shrine, with her guts ripped out and whatnot. It simply can't happen in those chapters. Okay, so curious. So maybe it's not that Shion killed whoever was going to carry it out, but she did interfere with the actual plot. That might show up as some other phenomenon. Perhaps the Watanagashi Meikashi chapters have something in common. Something that doesn't happen in the other worlds. Right. Or something that, yeah. Unfortunately, we're Rika Furade, so we don't know what happens after Rika is dead. Or, by any chance, do you know what happened? Did this become fucking Dora the Explorer? Hey, do you know what happened? Since I'm Rika Furade, I only know of events during Rika's life. You, on the other hand, are a special existence who was born in a superior world. Is there anything that didn't happen in the Watanagashi Meikashi chapters that happened in all the other worlds after Rika's death? Yes! If you know anything, then that must be another truth behind Rule Y. Okay, it's connected to Rule Y. Right, okay. So Rule Y is the guarantee that Tomitake and Takano die, and they've also roped in Rika. So what they're trying to imply here then is that, well, I guess they had already kind of mentioned that, like, if they are the same, there must be, not must, but there may be some connection between the deaths of Tomitake and Takano and Rika. And if there's some disturbance in that rule, right? If Rika does not die due to Rule Y, which is the guaranteed death, right? Then it alters the world in some way. The memories I have here are all mainly about the chaos brought about by Rika's friends, that is, Rule X, but its foundation, Rule Z, and the obvious hostility common among all worlds, Rule Y, are what I believe to be the true rules governing this stage. If so, then Rika's path is a thorny one. She needs to fight Rule Y in order to survive. Unless she defeats it, she has no future past June 1983. And to win her own happiness, she must also beat Rule X to win her friend's safety. So long as that's undefeated, one of Rika's precious friends may be led to tragedy. If that happens, then even should Rika survive, she wouldn't have the happy future she hopes for. She also may have to defeat Rule Z, just as Sonozaki Shion faced it in Meikashi. So long as Rule Z remains, and even if she escapes 1983, it's possible another tragedy may lie waiting in 1984. It's extremely likely that Rule Z is the breeding ground for Rule X. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Hinamizawa's fundamental belief that the Sonozaki family is behind everything, and the custom that anything can be misconstrued as the curse, may indirectly be the root of all evil here. People are not surprised to see somebody die on the night of Watanagashi. That type of thinking is keeping the curse alive in Hinamizawa, where it causes even more tragedy. It's Rule Z reinforcing itself. Rules X, Y, and Z. There are 3 rules that hunt Rika down in the eternal June of 1983. They are all tough obstacles. We didn't even figure out these 3 common rules until recently. Were you aware of them? I mean, we were definitely aware of Tomitake, and I guess Takano. Fuck, I have to remember the rules again. Y? Yeah, no, Y was the one I was aware of. Yeah, they mention Rule X, but I still don't... Like I said, I could see a case for it in Chapter 3, but like, I also feel like it doesn't quite apply in Chapter 3, but I guess that's why that one never really came to mind. And Rule Z. When those 2 speak of the Sonozaki family, people believe them. I guess that's one I never really was aware of myself. You know, in hindsight, kind of seems obvious, but if you were, I'll give you straight A's. Damn, I was only aware of one. Can I get like the C maybe? I've tried so hard in the past to break these rules, but I was never successful. However, a miracle happened in the Sumiyoraboshi chapter. Keiichi Maibata was able to recognize a small fragment from another world by chance, and he beat Rule X. True. In the end, Rika was still killed that night by Rule Y, though. Okay, see, that's what I was thinking. I think Akasaka did mention something about that by the end of it. But still, one Rule was defeated. That was a huge leap forward. Rika knew there were 3 common rules among the worlds, but she could never break any of them. Eventually, she gave up and lost interest in the worlds. That's how I was born. However, she's different now. She learned something valuable from Keiichi Maibata. That the rules can be broken with a strong enough will to fight. If she can break all 3 rules, Rika Puride will be freed from her eternal prison. She doesn't have much time left, though. Rika has traveled through many worlds. Her physical lifespan is not a problem, but her mental lifespan is getting shorter. Mentally, she is extremely old, and her soul is starting to turn into something different. In the end, she'll probably lose the ability to experience singular worlds. She's already showing those signs, and eventually her memories from the parallel worlds will mix together, ultimately causing her derangement and the loss of Rika Puride's soul. Then she will disappear. That means that you and I are going to be left in this dark world. The fragments of our memories will gradually disappear, and we'll be left alone in the eternal darkness. Eventually, we will die. Rika Puride is aware of that. She knows that her mental lifespan is getting shorter and shorter. Hanya is also losing her powers. Who? Is that Purple Girl? She can't rewind 3 years of time like she used to. Is that what she does? Her powers decrease so much that she can barely rewind 1 month of time. Oh. Actually, she can only rewind a few weeks. In the next world, she should only have about 2 weeks' time. Rika Puride is going to try and break all 3 rules in just those 2 weeks. I wanted to know what's outside the well, so I tried to claw my way up from there. I wanted to know what's outside the well, so I convinced myself to climb even when I fell and injured myself. I finally realized the higher I climb, the more pain I feel when I fall. When my curiosity toward the world and my physical pain become equal, I finally understood the meaning of the frog and the well. There's a work of fiction, classic. Chapter 7, Minagoroshi. Okay. Strong setup. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like them setting up, like, pay attention to these specific aspects of the story. Pay attention to the actions of these specific characters. If you pay close enough attention, you might be able to, like, figure some things out. I like it. I felt no gravity in the darkness, lost all my senses as a result. I banged my head on the floor with a dull thud. Seeing stars behind my eyelids, I curled into a ball while holding my head in pain. I had no idea why I was in this situation, but as soon as I heard their voices from the top of the cliff, I realized that I must have fallen. Ah, I remember. I was playing behind the shrine with the rest of the club members. I got too excited and started doing something very dangerous. Then the tree branch broke. That's why I fell off the cliff. My body started to ache all over. I remembered how I fell, but I still felt strange for some reason. I couldn't remember what I was doing. No, it was more that I couldn't remember who Rika Furude was before I fell off the cliff. I heard Hanya's panicked voice. I looked behind me and saw Hanya standing there with a scared look on her.
Hanya. これは一体何事な。リカはみんなと遊んでて崖から転げ落ちたのです。大丈夫なのですか？ハニュ。そんな今日はいつ？昭和何年の何月何日？
I always ask this question first when something like this happens. She finally realized that I was asking the same old question.
昭和58年6月なのです。綿流しのお祭りが再来週なのですから。なんてこと。それしか猶予がないってわけ。僕たちの力もこれが精一杯なのです。
Hanyu muttered regretfully. It was the middle of June 1983. If this really was the best she could do, I had no choice. I couldn't complain. I gradually started to remember more things.
私がまた昭和58年の6月にいるということ。また私は殺されたのか。
After Reina surrendered to the police, all the classmates were given checkups at the clinic. I didn't get hurt, so I was sent back home after they determined that I had no injuries. My memory started getting vague from that point on. A common characteristic of my violent deaths. When my life is taken away violently, the memory before death becomes vague with static. It's like a violently ripped roll of toilet paper. That example should make it easy to understand, even if it's uncouth. That's why I have no clear memory of what happened and how I died that night. I only have vague memories. I think someone covered my mouth with a handkerchief or something and I passed out. It's about the only thing that I remember, and only vaguely. I'm not even sure if it really happened. The only thing I know for sure is that I was attacked on my way home, or possibly after I got there, and that I was murdered suddenly. I don't know who killed me or how I was killed. I'm glad that at least I don't remember the horrific ending to my life every time it happens. Because of my experiences, I think I now understand why ghosts wander around this world, not knowing that they died so suddenly. If it's a death from a long-lasting illness, people tend to remember that they were sick. They can kind of assume that they died after being sick for a long time. When your memory is violently disrupted like mine, it can get quite confusing. When I first experienced this, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or not. I even thought that I hit my head hard and lost my memory. I need to organize things before I get too confused. My name is Rika. People look at me in a special way. That's not a big deal for me. All I want is a happy life where I can play around with my best friends. I can't remember how long I've been living just for the sake of obtaining that simple happiness. This panicked girl here is named Hanyu. She's also transparent. I'm the only one who can see her. Perhaps she only exists inside of my head. At any rate, Hanyu is invisible and can generally only interact with me. It'll be a long story if I try to explain Hanyu's existence, so I won't be doing that right now. Fair enough. Besides, I don't even know how I should talk about her. She's been there since I was born, and her existence is a natural thing for me. I saw everyone running up to the gravel road toward me. They're my important and lovable best friends. I just think because whoever that other voice was that was talking to us in the beginning, they mentioned that Hanyu had the ability to rewind time, but as she's done it several times over, her abilities have gotten weaker and weaker, right? But when we see Rika in chapter 4, right, when she delivers her prophecy to Akasaka and whatnot, that's clearly because she knows events are going to happen, right? And since she also can predict the death of Akasaka's wife, then that means it wouldn't even be the first time she had rewound to that point. So I'm starting to think, I wonder if are the series of incidents not connected at all? Maybe they are connected, or maybe Rika thinks they're connected, and that's why she tried rewinding back so far, as to see if the several incidents were connected, see if she could find any connecting points there. I mean, you add a time traveler to it, now things get very interesting. I've definitely seen time loop stories before, but having essentially this person over here that can control how much you loop back is kind of interesting. Our group's active, boisterous, and we get serious about doing stupid things. I'm never bored when I'm around them, and I love them very much.
Rika-chan, 大丈夫？捻挫とかしてない？どこ打ったの？おじさんに見せてみて。ありがとうなのです。頭に単コブができただけなのですよ。
I think all I got was a bump at least. My injury wasn't as serious as everyone thought.
頭を打った時はその場では大丈夫でも油断がなりませんでしたよ。
True.
それもそうだな。念には念で監督に診察してもらった方がいいかもしれないな。
レナもそれがいいと思うな。どうしよう、監督を呼んでくる？そうだね。近くの家で電話を借りて監督をそこまでしなくてもこの通りピンピンしてますのです。ニパー。ダメですわよ、リカ。
You can't nipa your way out of this one.
万が一ということがありましたよ。
Satoko warned me with a stern voice. Really wasn't a big deal, but I decided to nod since Satoko was trying to be generous. She wasn't trying to boss me around or anything. She was only saying that because of how much she cares. I've seen it before the many different lives that I've been through. I have no doubt that she's really concerned about me. It's not just Satoko. Mion, Reina, and Keiichi are the same. They're also nice to me, and they truly do care. Mion left to look for a phone. Reina also left with a towel, looking for the water tap. Satoko remained nearby, taking care of me with a worried face. And Hanyu was just standing there, still, wearing a panicked look. Keiichi seemed to be panicked too, but he was trying not to show it. He was standing by me, wearing a calm expression.
大丈夫か？
大丈夫なので、もう全然痛くないので。
なら不幸中の幸いだったよな。よかったよかった。
I wouldn't feel anything special about his words if this was a while ago. But at that moment, when Reina took over the classroom, when she hurt Mion, Keiichi tried his best to save Reina, even so. He was more reliable than I ever imagined from his normal behavior. He's usually an insensitive guy who hurts other people's feelings without noticing. That's not his true self. He has a secret side. He's willing to sacrifice himself for other people. I was just observing that not too long ago. That's why I can honestly feel his generosity now. Now that I think about it, Keiichi regained a memory from another world the previous time around. Is it possible that he carries that memory in this world too? If that's the case, I have some hope. Hanyu and I are totally powerless. Hanyu is only like heir to everyone but me, and I'm just a little girl. There's only so much that we can do ourselves. But Keiichi is different. He changed the fate that I had once resigned myself to. He's somebody who may have the power to take me to my unforeseen future. If I can get Keiichi to understand me, he could be my hero. Perhaps I'm actually not expecting that much out of him. I just want someone to understand my struggle of being stuck in this maze.
Keiichi?
I spoke to him slowly. It had been a while since I felt so nervous. I hadn't felt this way since I started my endless life in 1983. As a witch, I normally would know what his response would be before even talking to him. I often remained silent because I already know how pitiful the reply would be. But in that case, why was I so nervous now?
呼んだか、リカちゃん。
Hanyu gave me a disappointed look before I responded to Keiichi.
Rika.
I could tell what Hanyu was thinking too. The miracle wasn't going to happen. Miracles do happen. One could have happened many times in my other lives. I've only seen one miracle before. The miracle that Keiichi gave me was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of miracle. Only if it happened again would it be a true miracle. I won't get out of this world just because I rolled 6 on the die once. I can't get out unless I get a miracle that's equivalent to getting 6 on the die 10 times in a row. And so I rolled 10 dice, wishing they'd all turn out to be 6.
Keiichi.
どうしたんだよ。どこか痛むのか？
He looked at me worriedly after I called his name twice.
ケイイチは覚えていますですか？
I knew how sudden my question was. As I thought he would, he looked at me with a confused face.
え？覚えてるって。
I looked inside his eyes to see his true feelings. He should remember. He should know. Even though he doesn't have the memory, Keiichi experienced it.
なんですのケイイチさん。何かリカに悪いことでもしたん？自分の胸によく聞いてごらんなさいですわよ。ケイイチ、学校の屋根の上に登ったことを。学校の屋？ケイイチさん、そんなとこ。サトコは黙っててなのです。
Satoko, butt out.
ケイイチ、
Have a conversation.
覚え。
俺が屋根の上に？いつ？いや、リカちゃん。それは俺屋根なんか登ったことないし、登り方だって知らないよ。
Of course, you haven't experienced it in this world yet. Please tell me that you remember. I know you've never been up on the roof, but you should still remember doing it. You shouldn't be able to remember it, true, but you actually did once. You should be able to remember it once again.
屋根の上にボールでも取りに行ったんじゃありませんの？
I mean, not entirely wrong.
いや、サトコは経験あるか？
まさか屋根の上なんて上がったら先生に怒られましたよ。
でもさ、屋根の上で昼寝とかしたら
覚えてるわけないのですよ。そんな簡単に奇跡が起こるなら僕もリカもこんな苦労はしないのですよ。
Shut up. I knew that. I knew that he wouldn't
ど
remember.
うせまた 僕たちはお祭りの終わりとともに消えていく
Oh my god, you're such a
夏のセミの運
fucking
命な
downer.
のです
Jesus.
うるさいな
Yeah, honestly. As I stared at her fiercely, Hanya realized she had crossed a line. This might be a waste of time. The maze we're in might not have an exit. It might be an endless loop without a goal in place. We're trapped in this fate. I thought that Keiichi might be able to get me out of here. That Keiichi I saw was truly a miracle. A momentary glimmer. The Keiichi of this world doesn't bear that same miracle. I mean, also, yo, that's the thing. The last time Keiichi experienced his miracle, right, of remembering a past event, it was when he was, under a lot of stress and whatnot, thinking, under a lot of worry about his friend and whatnot, Not only was he dealing with his own, like, secret being exposed to Reina like that, right, the past he had tried to cover up, but in his efforts to try to be, a better friend to the rest of the class, right? Because he's like, oh, let me inform you of my past and whatnot. That led to him remembering an even worse thing that happened that made him feel even worse, made him feel like he did even worse by his own friends. Like, there's a lot of build-up there, and just hitting him with it while you're just out having a good time. Like, hey, we were all just playing around. Oops, I fell down. Hey, Keiichi, do you remember anything? Like, clearly not. If he's gonna remember something, I'm pretty sure he's got to be, like, under a good bit of stress for it to happen. All the same, I'm not going to give up. Yeah, no, I'm definitely not saying give up. I'm just saying now's not the right time. Last time, too, I gave up on fighting destiny. I realized Reina was beyond salvation, so I bid her farewell and forsook that world. But Keiichi fought and broke the cycle of fate. I should have worked harder with that Keiichi in that world. I could have broken this endless cycle together with him. Am I going to repeat this life, waiting for that miracle to happen again? I can't do that. I don't want to repeat the same life anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this world, my fate, and everything. I'm tired of getting murdered by destiny. Keiichi showed me a miracle. I should be able to do the same too. I must fight. I must fight with all my remaining power. I was always fighting. I was fighting when I had more power, but I never made it. How can I expect to win this time? Still, I must fight. Keiichi taught me that fate can be shattered. I'm going to fight one more time. Okay. I didn't see the black bar show up because it was already a black screen. Gotcha. To my granddaughter. Interesting. Go on. I am very interested then. Because the achievement just popped up and said, break the achievement's called Breaking the Cycle, and it says, let's do this one more time. So if this is like Rika's final pass through, makes me very curious what Chapter 8 has in store for us. I'm sorry for leaving you like this. I just need you to understand I'd rather take my own life than be fearful of how many days I have left to live. That's why I'm writing this letter to you. I can't stand the fear of being unable to leave behind a will while my life is prolonged, even as I lose my consciousness. In the end, there's nothing I can leave behind for you. I wasn't able to leave any of my achievements to this world. I was forgotten before I was dead. I leave this world a humiliated man, knowing that I had no appreciation from anyone. You must do better than me. You must achieve something that your grandfather was never able to achieve. I don't mind what field you choose. You must leave your mark on this world. You must leave behind your achievements. You'll eventually die someday. You'll eventually turn to ashes. As a human being, that is your inevitable fate. But if you achieve a great success, you will live forever even after you depart. Those who live beyond their deaths are called gods. I wish to become one, but I was unable to do so. So in my place, you must become a god someday. Okay. Interesting.
Hi. もう結構ですよ。
Ide withdrew the needle from Satoko's arm. Must not have hurt much for the needle to be pulled out. Satoko kept her eyes closed in fear, thinking that the needle was still inside her arm.
さとこ、お注射はもう終わったのですよ。
Oh, hot damn.
あら、もう終わってたんですの。
As Satoko opened her eyes, she found that Irie was no longer sitting in front of her. Takano was wiping her arm with rubbing alcohol instead.
そうよ。もう終わってたのよ。入江先生は私よりお注射が上手だから。終わったことにも気づかなかったでしょ。
Like, damn, Irie, I know you kind of a freak, but fuck, that's quite to get up to have your nurses in. Shit. Damn. Damn.
傷口を揉んじゃダメよ。できれば重いものも持たないこと。
分かっていましたよ。さとこは偉いのですよ。なでなでしてあげますのです。注射くらいもう全然平気ですのよ。リカに撫でられるような覚えはございませんですわ。
Not long ago, she would go into a panic when it was time for her to get her shot. The way she behaved today in itself was worthy of praise. Everyone in the room smiled, aware of that growth.
じゃあ、さとこちゃんはいつもの検査を受けてください。高野さん、お願いします。
ええ。さあ、さとこちゃん。いつものクイズをしましょうね。
高野さんのクイズは答えにくい問題が多くて私苦手ですわね。
いつもと同じよ。答えづらい問題はわからないと言ってくれればいいわ。変に考え込まず、自然に思いついた答えを口にしてくれればいいのよ。
Takano smiled at Satoko to ease her tension. Then she led Satoko to a desk in the back of the examination room.
さとこの具合、良いといいのです。
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
さとこの具合、良いといいのです。さとこの具合、良いといいのです。
I feel like I know this voice.
さとこの具合、良いといいのです。
This voice sounds very familiar.
さとこの具合、良いといいのです。
I'm gonna need you to speak some more lines on you. You sound very familiar. I don't know if it's because of the heat, but Satoko's been showing negative symptoms since last month. The change of the seasons can affect her physically and emotionally. Not surprised this is happening to her.
私は入江たちのところへでも行って、羽生はどうする？僕はさとこのそばにいてあげますのです。
Hold up. That's not Yui Horie, is it? Because if so, that would be the same voice as Maria from Umineko. That's not Yui Horie, is it? Hold up, hold up, hold up. That's not Yui Horie, is it? Ah, fuck you, it is Yui Horie. I fucking knew I recognized that voice. I don't know, there was something about this line that just like caught me.
さとこの具合、良いといいのです。僕はさとこのそばにいてあげますのです。
Okay, interesting. Interesting.
ありがとう。そうしてあげて。
Hanyu went over to where Satoko was. Fortunately, I'm the only one who can see Hanyu. She won't be a distraction if she goes and observes Satoko's test. I, of course, would be a distraction like that. This is supposed to be a routine exam, but it seems like Takano's teasing her by giving her difficult questions. It would be pretty funny to observe how Satoko reacts to them. I'm a little jealous that Hanyu gets to watch everything without being a bother to Satoko. Irie was talking with two other staff members about Satoko's exam results. I walked up and joined them.
よかった。では、解放に向かっていますか？
From what Irie was saying, her results must have turned out well.
入江、どうなのですか？
安心してください。いい結果が出ました。では、あとよろしくお願いします。
After ordering his staff to continue their work, Irie showed me some difficult paperwork and started explaining it to me.
先週の検査結果に少々焦りすぎたようです。急に気候が変わったので、交感神経が過敏に反応したのでしょう。風邪をひきかけたりということはありませんでしたか？
There was one night recently that was fairly hot. Satoko was sleeping without her blanket and her stomach was exposed. She might have caught a cold that night.
お腹を出して寝てた。おへそをつっついたけど起きなかったのです。
それは羨ましい。ぜひ今度そういうことがあったら私もさとこちゃんのおへそをプニプニしてみたいものです。
プニプニなのですよ。お腹もぽよぽよなのです。かわいいからお布団をかけるのがもったいないのですよ。
それが寝冷えの真相ですか。
リーカ、聞こえていましたよ。そういう時はこっそりお布団をかけてくださいませ。
ダメよ、さとこちゃん。時間も計ってるんだから、こっちに集中して。
Irie, Hanyu, and I all laughed. Satoko went back to her task with a bitter look on her face. Irie began speaking to me in a softer voice.
ただ、小康状態には戻りましたが、レベルはレベル3マイナス。
She's in remission, but her level is still L3 negative. So, okay, interesting. So, So Satoko has some kind of health issue. Which, like, obviously... Interesting. And she has to... There's a quiz as part of, like, her evaluation.
昨日も今日も明日も危険な状態を脱していないことに変わりはありません。
レベル3は永遠に治らないのですか？
アナフィラキシーショックと同じで、仮に異物が完全に取り除かれても人体側に過剰な反応を示す体質が作られてしまいます。つまり
サトコは完治しても一生
そういうことになります。ですが悲観することはありません。規則正しい生活習慣と、そしてある種の投薬を続けることによって
一生治らない。
I looked at Satoko as she enjoyed taking her test. She seemed to be having fun even while being teased by Takono. Can't believe that she's suffering from an incurable disease. Don't fucking tell me that. Don't fucking tell me that.
言葉を悪く言えばそうなります。
Man, I already cared so much about Satoko at this point. You tell me she has a fucking terminal illness too? Fuck, dude. Come on, man. This is some bullshit.
ですが世の中には難病ではあってもうまく病気と付き合っていけるケースも、例えば糖尿病がそうでしょう。病気そのものは生涯治りませんが、その発症は抑えることができます。
See, that's the thing. The way he was talking about it at first, like, I was thinking, like, are they talking about diabetes? Because he's like, oh, if they continue to live a normal life and, you know, with some assistance from medication, I'm like, well, that's kind of where my mind went. But, like, yeah, no, the way they kind of talked a bit more severely about it, I'm like, no, it's probably something a bit more severe than diabetes, unfortunately. I know that very well. There are many worse diseases in the world. You tell me. Satsuko might be in a relatively good situation compared to many other sick people.
もちろんこれで妥協するつもりはあります。さとこちゃんはきっと完治させます。絶対にです。
信じてますですよ。
Interesting, interesting, interesting. So Satoko suffers from some kind of incurable disease. We know that much. I'm just trying to think about like how that could possibly apply to anything we've seen in the past. Specifically, I'm thinking about like the end of chapter 3, right? She gets all, steamed up in the bathroom, and then Keiichi's like parading her around in nothing but a towel. And then shortly after that is when she gets all upset. Well, for one, after Rika's death, but then Keiichi talks about killing Teppei. She gets very emotional, pushes him off the bridge. I'm trying to think, like, is there some kind of connective tissue there? I'm not sure.
信じてください。
Idiot spoke to me with a serious look on his face. As Satoko's best friend, I felt relieved to hear his words. I'm sure he'll do his best to save Satoko's life. I have no doubt that he'll do so. I've seen him act like this in every life I've lived. I also know why he's passionate to save her, but I'm not supposed to know about it in this life. Care to share some details? That's why I always pretend not to see his sad smile. Care to share some details?
そうだ、リカさん。月末にまた少し大掛かりな検査があります。
今度は僕がモルモットになる番なのですか？
そんなつもりは。医学に貢献していただいていますし、大勢の人を救うことにもなります。
Idei's guinea pig is not just Satoko. I'm also one of them. Although guinea pig is probably not the right term. Without Idei's efforts, Satoko would not be here today. For that reason, I should be showing respect to this man. I smiled at him, since my choice of words had hurt his feelings.
僕を調べてサトコの治療に役立つのなら。
ご協力を。もう少し人と設備とお金があれば、これだけの負担をかけないのですが。
The next moment, the phone rang. Idei answered it in his usual business-like tone.
はい、もしもし。
東京から外線です。そちらへ回します。
I could hear the voice from the phone.
ああ、リサさんですね。
Risa.
もう今年もそんな時期になりましたか。電話は所長室で取りますから、そっちへ回してください。
はい。ではすみません。そちらの受話器を一度切ってください。
わかりました。リカさん、すみません。東京からの電話です。
いってらっしゃいなのですよ。
As soon as Idei hung up the phone in the other room started ringing. He left the examination room and headed toward the office. Hanyu returned to my side as soon as Idei left. Hanyu doesn't like to be around me when I'm talking with Idei. I don't think she dislikes him, just that she doesn't really want to hear what he has to say. Idei doesn't mean any harm, but Hanyu is often hurt by the things that come out of his mouth.
どう？サトコの様子は？
Hanyu doesn't like pedophiles, good to know.
サトコは相変わらず間違い探しは下手くそなのです。
Yo, I think what really set me off about her voice is not that it sounds a whole lot like Maria did, but also I play a lot of Nikke, and Yui Horie also voices a character in Nikke that sounds very similar.
僕の方がいっぱい見つけられましたのですよ。あんたの検査結果なんてどうでもいいでしょ。サトコの結果はどうなの？
Bitch, I don't care about your test results. I thought she was there to check on Satoko, but she was taking the quiz alongside her instead. That's so typical of Hanyu. She was treating it almost like a game, but Satoko was tired after taking the same quiz every week. She seemed sleepy, especially after waking up so early this morning. The quiz in this case wasn't about a right or wrong answer. It was about timing, in minutes, how long it took her to answer the question, and observing how she acted during the quiz. Not all the questions would be simple ones, so Satoko often got headaches, more so than even the spelling tests we take at school.
もうほとんど終わりなの？はいです。今、高野が持っているのが最後の一冊なのですよ。
Takano is showing a book to Satoko about with abstract pictures inside. Oh, the old Rorschach test? I couldn't even tell if it was supposed to be a picture. Just a symmetrical ink stain, the old Rorschach test.
さあ、これで最後よ。これは何に見えるかしら？
Both Hanyu and I looked at the picture over Satoko's shoulders. Even I didn't know what to answer when looking at the strange ink stain. Satoko continued to think. Takano observed her, taking notes while Satoko struggled. She was also timing how long it took her to answer, holding a stopwatch under the table. I spoke to Hanyu so only she could hear me.
羽生は何に見える？このシミ。ソフトクリームなのです。すべて落としてしまって 地面にべっしゃりとなのです。はうはうはう、もったいない。なるほど。実に相手の考えがわかるテストね。
To me, it looked like a horse mackerel that had been cut open and its guts pulled out. Damn, alright. I was thinking of food too. It was rather shocking to learn that my thought processes are the same as Hanyu's.
何に見えるかしら？思いつきでいいのよ。
Satoko must not be very good at this test. She always takes a long time to answer questions like this. She finally opened her mouth to speak.
2匹の蝶々が重なっている感じですわね。
Oh.
2匹の蝶々が重なって。いいわよ。続けて。どうして蝶々は重なっているのかしら？
Takano continued to take notes as Satoko spoke. Curious about what she was writing, I looked, but... Is that German? I can't read it at all. Takano's so mean.
ずっと離れ離れで会えなかった蝶々がやっと一緒になれて喜んでるところごめんなさいですわね。
Okay, that's...
私も何を言ってるのか自分でよくわかりませんわね。
No, I have a good idea of what you're trying to say there.
いえ、そういう答え方でいいのよ。思いついたことが抽象的なら、そのまま口にしてくれればいいの。そういう検査なんだから。
本当にこんなへんてこな絵の感想を言うだけで検査になりますの？
なるわよ。例えば、今のこの絵だけど、去年のさとこちゃんは別な答えを出してるの。それを比べるだけでも、この1年のあなたの変化を測ることができるわよ。
なんだか嫌なテストですわね。去年の私はこの絵に何て答えたのでございますの？
Takano smiled and took a note without answering her question. Try to remember what her answer was, but I have more than 100 years worth of memories in my head. Hanya might remember better than I do. As I looked at Hanya, I realized that she was standing there with a sad expression. I decided not to ask her. I could tell what kind of answer Satoko gave back then just by looking at Hanya's face. Last year, June 1982, that was when Satoko was being abused by her cruel aunt. Recalling that, I didn't even want to know what Satoko answered. But just a year later, that's the Satoko who was so worn down could no longer be seen. She became so strong. I know how difficult it was for her to stay tough and strong like this. Her growth over the past year is overwhelming to me.
ケンさん、終わりましたか？
Idiot returned from his office.
ええ、終わりましたわ。
だいぶさとこちゃんも手際が良くなりましたわ。今日はだいぶ早く終わりましたのよ。
早く終わらせるように頑張ったんですもの。今日は用事がある日だからのんびりとはできませんのよ。
おや？今日は何かあるんですか？日曜日ではありませんで。
今日はみんなでミーのおじさんのおもちゃ屋さんで部活があるのですよ。
Oh, okay.
なるほど。さとこちゃんが妙に今日はおとなしく検査に従ってくださると思いました。予定が詰まっていたんですね。それは悪いことをしました。ではさとこちゃん、これはいつものです。
Idiot put a big paper bag on the table. He opened it up and gave her instructions about the medications. Satoko had heard the same instructions over and over before, but Idiot still continued to talk just the same.
状態がいいようですので、お注射はこれまでの日に2回に戻します。
Interesting. Interesting. Shots. She takes shots. And we know that Rika carries a syringe with her, right? She brought the syringe to Reina. She tried bringing the syringe to Shion. Interesting. So, like I started hypothesizing towards the end of chapter 6, like the whatever Rika carries around in a syringe, right? It must be some kind of treatment for whatever's causing, the delusions, right? I gotta imagine that's what it is. That's why she would try to bring it to Shion. Because she wasn't trying to kill Shion, she was trying to, treat whatever delusion she was dealing with. Same with Reina. right? They see the syringe and think like, oh, that's what caused Tomitaki to kill himself. It's gotta be, right? When in reality, it's something that actually helps them. So it makes me think that Satoko does suffer from something similar, right? But because like the village is like well aware of Satoko's past and whatnot, like she's a lot. It's not one where like anyone's trying to hide anything, right? Shion's not trying to hide her past. Keiichi's not trying to hide his past. Reina, or no, they are trying to hide, is what I'm saying. It's not like with Shion and Keiichi and Reina where they're trying to hide something, right? Reina trying to, cover up the death of Rina and Teppei. Keiichi being, secretive of his past. Shion, all the shit she's been through. They all kind of have something that's like hidden that people don't really know about. Whereas Satoko's business is kind of just all out there. So she's actually able to be treated for it. But I gotta imagine it's something similar, which is why Satoko like breaks down the way she does at the end of chapter 3. Oh shit. Totally just slapped the fucking microphone. Alright.
昼食前と就寝前の2回に必ず注射をしてください。
Interesting. A shot before lunch. Which is interesting that we haven't seen her take any medication.
注射針は必ず変えるように。
Of course.
同じ針を2度使ってはいけませんよ。
Very true.
それからこちらはどうしても体調が悪くなった時のみ食後に。
はいはいはい、いつもと同じですわよ。分かっていましたよ。
Satoko couldn't wait to meet our friends for the club activity. Made me feel happy to see her as excited as this.
注射2本に戻りましたのですよ。よかったのです。
The number of shots she has to take each day represents how well she's doing. So it's a good thing that she has to take fewer shots.
大変よね。1日に2本も注射を打つの。
I do love that face on Hanyu though. Such a funny face. Hanyu grew quiet after hearing my comment. Ide handed her the paper bag after he finished his instructions.
リカ、終わりましたよ。
ええ、お疲れ様。検査中からずっとそわそわしてたからね。いってらっしゃいな。
すみませんわね、上野さん。いつも検査をしてくださって感謝していますのよ。
ほら、もう時間がない。私の車で送ろうかしら。そうそう。また車に新しいぬいぐるみがあるのよ。
I don't trust
今
that.
度は約束通り、さとこちゃんが名前をつけてくれていいわよ。
あら、何のぬいぐるみでございます？どんな名前にしようか迷いま。何の動物のぬいぐるみなんです？
また猫なのよ。今度は虎島なの。可愛いからきっと気に入ってくれるわよ。
Satoko and Takano are good friends. Are they now? That's interesting. Because that's the thing. Like, obviously, I try not to bring it up as often, but like, in the case of like, Burn Castle and Lambda Delta from Umineko, we all know that Burn Castle is like some variation of Rika, right? But like, I guess I haven't looked too deeply into it, but like Lambda Delta, it's kind of like contested who she is, right? And like I said, I've never looked too deep into it because I never wanted to like spoil myself on this story because I knew I wanted to read it at some point. But pretty much the theories that I've heard are either she's a representation of Takano, or she's a representation of Satoko, or some people theorize that she's some kind of representation of both. She's some kind of amalgamation of the two. Those are like the theories I hear. So it's very interesting to hear that this whole time Satoko and Takano have kind of been besties. They're both fond of stuffed animals. Every time Takano gets a new one, she brags about it to Satoko. That's all they have in common, but having a friend like Takano is a special thing for Satoko. She's part of the Hojo family, who tried to betray the village. People at the clinic are the only adults who will even talk to Satoko.
じゃあお二人とも部活行ってらっしゃい。罰ゲームが未定でしたらぜひメイド服の着用を提案してください。サイズから種類までいろいろと取り揃えておりますの。また来週お会いしましょう。
やなこったなの、また来週なのです。さ、行きましょうですわ。今日は部活メンバーだけじゃありませんものね。腕が鳴りましたよ。
I bowed slightly and made to leave the examination room, but I soon realized something. Idiot was looking at me with a sad expression on his face. Just with that look, I could tell what he wanted to say. Please take care of Satoko-chan if something happens to her. I nodded at him and stepped out into the hallway with Satoko.
やれやれ。検査は慣れても疲れますわね。
No. I was starting to think, like, is this going to be, like, similar to, like, how Chapter 5 was, like, a variation of Chapter 2? This would kind of be, like, a twist on Chapter 3? Kind of how even the previous chapter was kind of like a twist on the first one, right? Even gave us some revelations of the first chapter. But then I'm like, wait, the showdown at the toy shop that happens in Chapter 2 and subsequently Chapter 5. Because that's when all the stuffed animal nonsense happens and Mion doesn't feel seen as a woman, blah, 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 blah.
検査、お嫌なのですか？めんどくさいから嫌ではありますけど、仕方ありませんわ。
Satoko is supporting Idie's research. She gets financial support by helping him out. Or at least that's what Satoko thinks she's doing. Oh, interesting. So Satoko herself doesn't know about her own condition? Interesting. So they've made up this, like, premise of, like, yeah, no, you'll be compensated for helping us with our research, when in reality she's suffering from some condition, but I guess I can only assume that informing her of her condition might cause it to worsen. Satoko's bursting with enthusiasm, so we head to Okonomi at full speed. We wound up waiting for Keiichi and the other club members for a long time. We got here early, but they were late. I think they were late the last time we did this too. Did it mean that this was something that was meant to happen? Looking at all the minute details, like, so they're destined to always be late to the toy store. It's unpleasant that I can't even change the most minor of fates. Finally saw them coming towards us on their bikes.
皆様方、お待ちしてましたよ。
Satoko acted like she was upset, but I could tell that she was pleased to see them just the same.
さとこが可愛いのですよ。そこが飽きないのよ。可愛すぎる。
Satoko's behavior soothes my feelings of frustration. This is why I love Satoko. If she was a small fluffy animal, I would definitely keep her in a cage. Wow, okay.
さとこちゃん、リカちゃん、おはようございますなのです。
おおはようリカちゃん。サトコ、警察が来る前にケリをつけるぞ。目標は10億強奪だ。
圭一さんの話がわかりませんわ。遅くなったかな。リカちゃんたちは今来たの？今日は早く終わったのでだいぶ待ってましたですよ。
Mion and Reina know that Satoko gets a checkup every Sunday at the clinic.
そりゃ悪いことしたわ。こっちはケイちゃんがなかなか来なくてさ。
That Keiichi. So he's the reason they're always late.
圭一では仕方ありませんですよ。ニパー。
ちょい待て。俺が悪役になれば丸く収まるのかよ。
もちろん。圭一さんでなくては務まらない大役でしたよ。
実に嫌な大役だな。こんなので丸く収まると思ったら大間違いだぞ。
Keiichi and Satoko messed around with each other. Satoko acted like she was crying, and Reina punched Keiichi, knocking him out cold. It was the same old situation they always got into. I could watch this sort of thing forever. Same. It's like having a glass of cold milk after taking a hot bath. I don't fuck with milk like that, but sure.
やっぱりこれが正しい
This is
丸
true.
い収め方だよ
You
な。
cannot win against her.
前歯が欠ける前に新しいオチを探した方がいいと思うけどね。
They all laughed at him and finished greeting each other.
今日もみんなとっても元気なのです。元気に勝る宝はないわね。 そんなこと言ってるとリカはどんどん老け込んじゃいますので。
うるさいな。誰のせいだと思ってんのよ。当分甘いものを食べるのやめるわよ。
Anya seems to be getting more depressed than usual. I should stop teasing her so much. No, but that's when she's funny.
嘘よ。冗談だからあんまりしつ。
ごめんなさいなのです。
Anya loves sweet treats. She especially loves cake and ice cream. Since she can't eat anything, she has to depend on me when it comes to that. In other words, whatever I eat, Hanyu can taste too. Even if Hanyu craves something, it doesn't mean anything if I don't eat it. In other words, I have total control of what she eats. That's why it's fun to tease her with saying what I'll eat and what I won't. It's almost as fun as teasing Satoko.
リカちゃんは今日もご機嫌だね。お持ち帰り。
はいはい。お持ち帰ったら犯罪だからね。
ミオン、店のおじさんが呼んでるぜ。
リカ、聞きまして。今日の部活、賞金が出るんだそうですのよ。
I remember. Mion was going to be paying 50,000 yen out of her pocket as a prize. Couldn't believe she could just afford that. Therefore, I have to assume that she has some kind of guarantee that she won't lose.
なんと5万円でしたよ。5万円。
Satoko stared at me. Oh no. She's expecting me to be surprised to hear the prize was 50,000 yen. It's natural to be surprised after hearing that sum. But I didn't react because I already knew it. Perhaps I gave the impression that I've known it for a long time.
ケイチさん、5万円なんてすごい賞金と思いませんですこと
5万円なんだよそれ。ケイチ王国の5年分の GNP に匹敵するぞ。
Keiichi GNP. Satoko said the same thing to Keiichi. She probably assumed that I wasn't listening to her. So she decided to talk to Keiichi instead.
小さなミスよ。大丈夫。
5万円もあればもうずっと使い切れないくらいのお醤油が。なんで5万円分もお醤油を買わないといけないんですの。お醤油を買ってきてと言ってもめんどくさがる人がいるからなのですよ。ミパー。リカって結構根に持ちますのね。
5万円分の醤油って一体どのくらいだよ。
Let's see, was that like $300? 300, 350, somewhere in there? Probably get quite a bit.
すげえ量になりそうだな。
Keiichi joined the conversation, which finally brought us back to our normal pace. In order to pursue a greater happiness, I need to sacrifice a smaller one. In a perfect world, Rika Purude was supposed to be surprised to hear from her best friend that the prize was 50,000 yen. But I already knew that. I knew it from my previous lives, so all I could do was give her a boring reaction. Can't be surprised at the big prize of 50,000 yen. I can't give her the reaction that she expects from me. I am losing the ability to be surprised by life. And after the continual repetition of small incidents like this, there will be nothing left that I can find interesting. I'll have nothing to be surprised about. I'll never be impressed with anything. Eventually, I'll lose my emotions entirely. That's why I'm always trying to be careful. I make sure I act like the Rika Purude who doesn't know anything. Even though I may not be impressed as a young girl, Rika Purude should be impressed with many things. Rika Purude is supposed to act excited when she encounters something for the first time. I try to, at least. But the more and more I try, the more I feel like Rika Purude is someone very distant.
リカ。
ごめん。こういうことで感情を灰色にすると世界をもっと楽しまなきゃ。
I don't mean my lifespan literally. I'm not referring to my physical lifespan, but my mental one. The more and more I repeat the same days, the more I lose. From wonder to passion, and eventually my life will become like an overplayed videotape. If I'm tired of that tape, I have no choice to close my eyes and sleep. By the time I wake up, the video should be over. But in reality, my life is not a beat-up old videotape. If I close my eyes and sleep, that would be my death. When my mental lifespan is over, Rika Purude will turn into a doll who can't even move a finger by her own will. When that happens, my pursuit of happiness will be over. I don't want that to happen. It's been at least 100 years, if not more. I've been stuck in this living hell for so long. I don't want my life to end here.
ごめん。もう大丈夫。100年程度で愚痴ってたら、あんたには。
僕はもう運命に慣れていますのですから。
よし、大丈夫。 私はフルでリカ。私はフルでリカ。
If I don't stay focused on being Rika Huride, I'm afraid I might end up showing my true self inside of that shell. Rika Huride is supposed to be a cute and innocent little girl after all.
レナだったら5万円で何を買いますですか？ケンタくん人形とか売ってもらえないのかな？フライドチキン屋さんに5万円持ってったら売ってくれないかな？その5万円で鎖を切る工具と第8車を買った方が早いと思いますです。レナさんだったら素手で鎖を引きちぎりかねませんわね。
違いない違いない。
ひどい。
Thus, we rejoin the typical flow of conversation naturally. Once I enter that flow, it's not hard for me to continue as Rika Huride. Being Rika Huride is like flying a kite for me. Once it's up in the air, it can stay in the sky for quite a while. But if something happens and it loses control, it's one heck of a challenge to get it back on track. Every time it tries to get back up in the air, the kite gets dragged on the ground and wears out. I'm exactly like that. Finally, Mion started clapping her hands to get everyone's attention. I already knew the rules. The members will be broken into 5 different groups, and each group plays a game that they choose together. I was secretly hoping that Mion would change the rules for some reason. There's nothing more boring than to already know what was going to happen.
ミオンの部活ってひょっとするとルールは違うこともあるかも。
普段ならそういうこともあると思いますですが、
強い意志は運命になりやすい。
Normally, when we're doing club activities, Mion decides what to play at the last minute. She opens her locker and randomly decides what game to play. For that reason, our club activities are rarely repeated through my lives. That's why I'm never bored with them. But just as Hanya said, today's event was something that Mion had been planning for a while. I was certain she wouldn't suggest anything spontaneously today. In that case, this won't be up to random chance. Mion had only one idea in her mind. Therefore, it was equivalent to destiny. Although her idea of having this event in the toy store is actually a spontaneous one. In all the lives ever repeated, there's a very low chance for this event to occur.
だからあまりそういうのは
期待してるわけじゃないわ。
Of course, I was lying just now. I was hoping that Mion would suggest a new rule for this game. If it was the same rules again, I'd be suffering for a few minutes while I listened to her instructions. Nothing is more frustrating than walking the same path over and over again. Please, Mion, please change my fate. Please.
まずはくじ引きで5つの卓に分かれるよ。そして各卓から1人の勝者を出して。
It was the same rules after all.
ごめん。ちょっと期待した。
変な期待はかえってリカを傷つけますですよ。
そうね。何度も教えられてるのに私も学ばないわね。
Hanya has taught me so many times. She taught me the trick to swimming in the flow of destiny. The flow of destiny is just like a river's. By going with the flow, I can swim the direction I want to some extent, but of course, trying to swim against the flow requires great effort. Allowing myself to drift causes the least amount of strain. But of course, some strong currents are impossible to resist, even with great effort. If I recklessly try to resist without realizing it's impossible, then I'll only wear myself out needlessly, just as if fighting a river's current. So Hanyu taught me to read those currents, which is why I should have easily imagined that the rules would be the same the moment I learned Mion had planned today's event in advance. Yet I still wish the rules would be different, a completely wasteful action. In the end, my hopes were betrayed, only leaving my heart worn out. And things like that cause me to separate further from Rika Huride. Eventually I grow tired of everything, lose all interest, and die.
抗えない運命は受け入れる。
リカなら運命の流れを読むことができますですよ。
そうよね。ただでさえ短い残りの寿命。大事にしないとね。
I sighed and pretended as though I was listening to what Mion was explaining.
どうしたんだリカちゃん、退屈なのか？
Keiichi surprised me all of a sudden.
退屈って僕がですか？
This had never happened before, so I thought he was talking to someone else. It seemed like Keiichi really was talking to me.
なんか今朝は会ってからずっと退屈そうな。ひょっとして早起きしすぎて寝不足なのか？
前に同じ部活をやったことがあるのでまたなのかと思っただけなのです。
No one would understand what I mean anyway, but Keiichi might, and so I told him how I honestly felt.
なんだそうなのか。なんだミオンめ。ま、俺は初めての参加だから十分楽しみだけどな。
I envied him for feeling that way. I sighed, knowing that I never will.
確かに、すでに知ってる説明を。俺も昔、塾で学校のだいぶ先まで遅れて習う学校が苦痛だったことがあるよ。
Keiichi didn't understand me, but I'm glad that at least he understood how frustrating it was to repeat the same situation.
そうなのです。僕も学校は特に苦痛。
本当かよ。いつも楽しそうにしてるじゃないかよ。
Rika Furude is supposed to be happy at school. That's why I act that way.
すでに知っていることを延々と聞き続けなければならないのは
It's easy for
拷
me to...
問以外の何者でもないと思いますのです。
It's easy for me to change what Satoko cooks for dinner. I can simply volunteer to cook instead of her. But I can't change what the teacher teaches at school every day. I have no choice but to be quiet and listen to her lecture.
まあ授業はどうしようもないよな。俺はそこを塾で習ってますから、その次をやってください。でもこいつは違うぜ。遊びじゃないか。
遊びではありますが、決まって
わかんねえぜ。だって5択に分かれるのはくじ引きだそうじゃないか。しかもそれぞれの択で何のゲームをやるかは、今日どんなゲームで戦わされて、どんな展開で盛り上がるかなんか、全然想像がつかねえぜ。
Is she gonna lay it all on the table? That'd be so funny. Be like, there's no way to predict what games we'll play and who will win each match. She's like, that group's gonna play this, that group's gonna play that, that group's gonna play that. She's gonna win, she's gonna win, she's gonna win, you're gonna win.
予想はつきますですよ。
そんなことねえよ。
Keiji smiled as he contradicted me. That smile seemed so ignorant to me. Hit him
く
with
じ引
it.
きで5択に分かれますですが、圭一はあそこ、僕はそこの択なのです。そして僕は魚釣りの圭一はすごろくの100億長者ゲームなのです。
I don't know how, but last time we were broken into 5 separate groups. Couldn't have been a coincidence. I'm sure Mion did something to ensure it would end up like that. I'm 100% sure. As for the games we play, I'm not totally sure, but if each member in the group follows the same thinking patterns, they'll probably end up making the same choices. If you roll dice many times, you begin to approach the average. One person's spontaneous act can be random, but multiple people's thoughts can be averaged out for the most part. The more people that are involved, the more difficult it is to alter the path of fate. That's why I'm pretty sure that we'll end up playing the same games. Keiichi seemed surprised to hear my prediction.
なんだよそれ。予言か？よくそこまで言い切れ。
運命とはそういうものなので。
へへ。運命なんて言われると意地でも抗ってみたくなるのが男ってもんだよな。
Yeah? He smiled at me again. I knew that he was just smiling without reason, but I felt a small hope from him. After all, Keiichi really did shatter fate before. That was just a miracle that happened in my previous life. I couldn't expect him to do the same thing in this one. But then, see, you start doing these small things, the small things add up, right? Yeah, you're pretty much fated to play the game of life, but he's like, nah, you know what? Now I'm gonna make sure we don't play the game of life. Play something completely different. Throw the whole thing for a loop. Otherwise, I would have been worn down by my high expectations again.
はい、くじ引きはこの箱の中から1枚引いて決めよう。まず部活メンバーからね。
Leon drew first, then Satoko followed. The results were the same as last time.
初戦で部活メンバーとは当たりたくねえな。もしリカちゃんと当たったらごめんよ。
当たりませんです。圭一の択は、僕の択はそこ。
そううまくいって。うりゃ。
Keiichi looked upset.
ね、僕の予言は外れないのです。
5択の一つってこと。適当に言ったって、それだけの確率で当たるってことさ。
Keiichi told me it was just a coincidence.
なら、僕のくじも予想通りだったなら。
20% の 20% だから、さすがにこの確率だったら信じてもいいぜ。
Keiichi grinned at me, believing such a chance was impossible.
さあ、最後はリカちゃんだよ。
Mion handed me the box of slips. No matter what I did, I'd be getting that table. There was a reason behind it. Mion was doing something to make sure that we all get a different table. I thought about why Mion would do that. With the information I've gathered about Mion over many years, I could see her reasoning.
多分、ミオンは部活のメンバーの誰かが1回戦で負けてしまったら。
そうね、同じ卓に部活メンバーがぶつかり合ったら、どちらかのメンバーは必ず敗退することになる。
If everyone was in a different group, we'd all have a chance to move on to the second stage. That's why she was controlling this draw. I put my hand inside of the box. I could feel several folded pieces of paper inside it. But if you thought for a moment it was odd, No matter which one I choose, I'd never get any other table.
どういう仕掛けでリカを最後の卓へ送るよ。
さあ、それはミオンに聞かないとわか。でも一つ言えるのは、多分この箱の中のどれを引いてもあの卓になると書いてあるはず。
Ah, I got it.
その箱の中には
そういうことにな。多分ミオンの持つこの箱は何か細工がしてあるんでしょうね。
It's probably a box for a magic show or something. There could be some kind of gimmick inside the box, and she can switch what's inside of it. Depending on who's drawing the paper, she changed out the lot to control the result. I didn't know exactly how, but I was sure she was doing something. I didn't even need to know how she was doing it. The most important thing was why.
どれにしようか迷いますです。
さあさあ、どれを選んでも運命は一緒だよ。
She was admitting it herself. I was certain then. Based on what I felt inside, there were less than 10 pieces of paper inside of this box. In other words, there were hidden pieces of paper that I couldn't touch somewhere inside the box. I smiled at Mion as I figured out her trick, but she had no clue why I was
で
smiling.
はこれなのです。
はいよ、どれどれ。おお、すごいね。部活メンバーが全員きれいに分かれたよ。
Mion behaved as though this was news to her. She's such an actress. The other contestants made a dissatisfied noise. They have to face a club member no matter which table they got. Keiichi was surprised too, not only because we were divided.
ね、運命は決まっていることなのです。
I smiled at him in return. Keiichi was in denial for a moment, but then he smiled back at me.
25分の1の確率で当てるとはやるじゃねえか。
It was not. I predicted that Mion and Satoko would be at a different table, so the possibility was even lower than that. Keiichi understood that. But normal people like him can't understand the meaning of fate. That's why he put it off as a coincidence. But Keiichi, what if my prediction is right about what game you'll be playing? Press what? The possibility will be 1 in billions. There are a lot of games in the store. What if that prediction is right too? Will he still believe it's just a coincidence? I stayed quiet in my seat and waited to see what game my group was going to decide on. They were going to choose the fishing game. I can't expect them to choose anything other than that.
期待して裏切られたらまた辛くなるものね。
One of the boys stood up. He walked toward the shelf full of games and picked up one box. Lifted the box above his head and turned so he could show it to us. I closed my eyes as he did so, but I could still hear what he was saying.
見ろよ、懐かしいよな。これにしねえか。知ってるよそれ。魚がくるくる回って口をパクパクさせるのを釣るやつだろ。
I could taste the bitter chemicals from my brain in my mouth. I clenched my lips and tried to endure the numbing feeling.
ごめん、今日は体調が悪いのかしらね。なぜかうまく受け流せないわ。
It wasn't because I wasn't feeling well, of course. It was because of my emotions. Our powers are getting weaker and we can only rewind about 2 weeks of our lives. I was feeling that the end was near for us. In order for me to change my tragic fate, I needed more time to prepare. If I can only go back 2 weeks, it means my power to resist my fate is significantly weakened. Even if I become as weak as a small leaf in the river, I should be able to do something in order to change my path. But if I can only go back to the point where I'm getting ready to be swallowed into the whirlpool, there's no chance for me to escape it. I lived for so long, believing that I could eventually escape my fate and survive. I believed that I had a chance in every moment of my life I lived. But there are limits to those chances. There are so many limits in my repeated lives, and perhaps this might be my last chance. That may be why I'm feeling so restless.
ダメです、リカ。難しく考えれば考えるほど。
分かってる。ちょっと黙ってて。
あうあうあうあうあう。
My brain was numb, as if surrounded by a gray mist. I was inside the crowded toy store, but felt very far away from everyone else. The tighter I closed my eyes and the harder I clenched my teeth, the emptier my head became. No.
リカ、リカ、しっかり。
As I tried to focus, I became conscious again. Hanyu looked at me with concern. I tend to lose my mind easily right after coming back from death. I usually have more time to relax and get used to my new life. I have no time for that now. The Watanagashi festival is only 2 weeks away. I can't just relax and wait for myself to get used to things. Don't be a wimp, Rika. Don't be a wimp. Fight against fate. But even if I do, that fate always betrays me and I grieve. What if I did the opposite? What if I didn't fight against fate? A few weeks after the Watanagashi festival of 1983, I'll die because I'm fated to do so. Fight, don't fight, fight, don't fight, fight, don't fight. Here. As I repeat the same words, they start to lose all meaning. I felt like I was chanting something. I bit my tongue in my mind and forced myself to stop thinking about it. I was calming down a little bit. When I opened my eyes, I saw the fishing game in front of me, as well as my pole. Someone placed it there while I had my eyes closed. It was as if I was seeing the immovable reality of fate right in front of me. It felt like a final verdict to me. What do you think, Keiji? This is what fate is all about. Do I want to earn his agreement or his sympathy? I stood up and walked toward Keiichi's table. His group couldn't decide on a game, so the store owner was deciding for them. Just like the last time, the store owner will pick the game of life.
やっぱり相手の提案するゲームじゃ不利なんて言って互いの提案を蹴り合うもんだからちっとも決まりゃしね。リカちゃんの方は決まったのか？
見ればわかりますですよ。
He looked at my table and saw the fishing game there. Keiichi was surprised to see that my prediction was right again. He also remembered that I predicted his game too.
じゃあマスターはリカちゃんの予言した100億長者ゲームを持ってくるっていうのかい？
僕は時々ミパ
本当かよおい。よしよし。じゃあマスターが本当に100億長者ゲームを持ってきて。
そうです。ケイイチたちは。
よしよし。そこまで言う。あ、マスターを買収して。
マスターが売れ残りのゲームを持ってこようと強く思っているなら必然の結果になりますのです。
I remember it was covered by dust when he gave it to them last time. Since we had to buy the game if we lost, he was trying to sell products he had a surplus of. Therefore, he won't be choosing any game at random. He'll be looking for one with bad sales, with a strong will to do so. That will of his is going to make the pull of fate all the stronger. In that sense, there's no guarantee that he'd be choosing the game of life specifically. He might choose something else that's also overstocked. The owner finally reappeared with a box covered in dust.
ね、言った通りなのですよ。
He has a game of life box in his hands. The part of me that hoped it wouldn't be the game of life tasted bitterness at the betrayal, but the cynical part of me that expected it to happen found it amusing in a way. I felt like my personality was twisting more and more.
マスター、どうして？
ん？いやいや、本当に気まぐれだよ。倉庫の在庫から適当に探し出したのさ。決して売れ残りの一番傷んだやつを持ってきたわけじゃないんだよ。
When he heard that the owner chose the game randomly, Keiji shrugged his shoulders in confusion. That must be his way of surrendering.
なあ、リカちゃん。これって。
ミパ
いやさ、村のお年寄りにリカちゃんはお社様の未来の予言とかができて、それって本当なのか？
I was surprised that Keiichi actually believed the superstitious stories he heard from the elderly villagers.
決まっている運命を読む。もっと言えば前に一度見てきた世界なのですから。
ここまで当てられちゃそんなバカなとも言えやしない。
Keiichi seemed like he was just fooling around. He probably only thinks I'm goofing around and acting haughty because my random predictions all came true. I had hope for him. I thought the owner might bring a different game because Keiichi once had the power to change fate. But that didn't happen. I'm not surprised. But I felt betrayed again. Huh. It hurts.
賭けは僕の勝ちなのですよ。
I speak to Keiichi sarcastically. I want him to understand that no one can change the path of fate. However, Keiichi did nothing but smile.
調子に乗るなよ、リカちゃん。運命を読めるなんていい加減な。男にとって宿命と運命という言葉はそんなやすやすと読めるようなもんじゃね。
I had no idea what he was trying to say, but he made me nervous. It wasn't a scary feeling. No, it was closer to hope.
さっきリカちゃんはマスターが100億偶然であったとしても的中したのだから。でもな、こうも言ったよな。
何ですか？
俺が100億長者ゲームで戦うことも運命だってな。
Yes, it was indeed his fate. Yeah. That's what the guy picked. Who said I was going to play it? Fate can change sometimes with uncertainty and time, but the possibility that it would change in this situation was very slight. I doubted that anything would turn out differently.
なら、その運命とやらを。
Keiichi stood up in a hurry. Then he started talking to Tomita Nakamura and his group members.
すまん、俺、だからルールの裏の裏まで知り尽くしてる。
そうなんです。
ああ、だからこのセレクトはフェアじゃないよ。マスター、申し訳ない。
そうか、わかったよ。じゃあ他のを持ってこよ
う。The owner picked up the game of life again and took it back into storage. Yep. As I remained there in shock, he returned with a game called Pop-Up Pirate.
これならどうかな。
あの樽にナイフを刺す。
どうだよ二人、これならフェアだろ。
そうですね。それにしましょう。
じゃあ決まり。俺たちの卓はこれで勝負だ。
Keiichi winked at me as I stood there with my mouth open. It looked like he had just forcefully changed my prediction. But, for me, it's not that simple. It was supposed to be fate. That's why the owner brought the game of life to their table. They were supposed to play that game. That's what happened the last time. That's what was supposed to happen. But he just changed that fate in front of my eyes like it was nothing. It's as if someone asked me to stand an egg on its end. And as I struggled to do so, Keiichi forcefully cracked the egg and made it stand up in front of me. I should have had a far greater power than Keiichi, but why was I feeling so weak? Was it because I wasn't trying to fight against fate so I wouldn't get hurt? Because I was going with the flow without trying too hard? What was I thinking?
リカちゃんさ、さっきそれってあれだろ、魚釣りゲームじゃ嫌だなって
そうね、今さら隠さない。
じゃあ簡単じゃないか。
So I'm a witch who's been living for more than 100 years? So I thought I was better than everyone just because I can see the paths of fate? That's stupid. I really am so stupid. Keiichi tapped me on the back. He was urging me to return to my table. The sensation of his touch filled up my heart with emotion. I wasn't going to stand idly by anymore. I thought I couldn't cheat fate. But I thought 2 weeks wasn't enough. But Keiichi just defied his fate in a matter of 5 minutes.
僕は魚釣りゲームはお魚さんがかわいそうだと思いますので、他のゲームにしたいのですよ。
The other people at the table looked at me with confused expressions. Their reactions were scaring me. Right at that moment, I could really feel that I was facing the impenetrable wall of fate. Even so, I have nothing to be scared of.
そっか。じゃあリカちゃんの提案する他のゲームでいいよ。
They accepted my suggestion and gave up the fishing game so easily. That's right. I used to be much more aggressive before, but I became so tired, and bitter, and mean. I gave in to fate. I'm not going to yield anymore. Keiichi taught me that. He didn't have any memories from his previous life, but Keiichi was still Keiichi. He'd never give in to fate.
久しぶりに運命と戦おうという気力がやる気があれば、それが2週間もあるんだもの。今回はもっともっと運命と
頑張りましょうなのです。
In contrast to my motivation, Hanyu was wearing a sad expression.
Hanyu. そっか。おじさんの店の手伝いってんじゃしか。
ささやかなお店だけどね。でもさ、特売やれば主婦が殺到するの常識で読めないのかね。店員足りないのに卵1パックを一人様1点限り10円なんてやるな。
God, imagine. Carton of eggs for only 10 yen? That's like 6 cents, dude. That's insanity. As we were getting ready to move on to the next stage, Mion got a call from work. This was fated to happen too. I was still feeling depressed. I would have been disgusted with the situation. After learning what it felt like to change fate, I was in a good mood. Keiichi and Mion seemed like they kept regretting that they were unable to settle their match. They really are such good friends.
本当にあの二人は仲がいいね。仲良しさんすぎてレナは焼いちゃうよ。はお。うちのクラスにはケイイチさんと近い年の男子がいませんものね。ケイイチさんにはちょうどいい男友達の感覚なんじゃありませんの？それでもみーちゃんは女の男の子にはなれないよ。それは分かってますけど、こうしていると仲のいい男子同士にしか見えませんわね。
Reina and Satoko enjoyed the lingering excitement of the day as they watched Mion and Keiichi happily goof off. The next moment, the owner came out from the store.
みんな、おかげでイベントは大盛り上がりだったよ。
He was holding 4 paper bags in his hands. I remember, he gave us gifts as a reward for today. I think there were dolls inside.
大したものじゃないけど、これ。
私にはないの？おだちん。
He was giving them only to us. You don't take anything because she's a family member. That's what happened last time too.
あらあらあら、可愛いのが出てきましたわよ。
Satsuko let out a cheer of joy as she saw a cute doll inside of her bag. Reina reacted the same way.
わあ、これかい。お持ち帰りし
ってことは、なんだかやたら可愛いのが出てきたぞ。
Keiichi got a gorgeous, expensive-looking doll. It was by far the best one. It was adorable even to my eyes. Satokura and Mion were feeling the same way.
ケイちゃんには一番似合わないのが出てきちゃったね。
Mion started making fun of him right away. She was only saying that because she was jealous that Keiichi got a doll that she really wanted.
なんつうのか可愛いのは認めるんだが、着せ替え人形は
ケイちゃんが持ってたら確実に明日から変態扱いだね。うん。
Mion just can't be honest with herself. It was obvious that she was just trying to make him give up the doll so she could have it herself. She should have just admit that and asked Keiichi for it. That's the cute side of Mion. I bet Keiichi can never understand that. Keiichi can't keep the doll after receiving that much bullying from Mion. He was thinking about who he should give it to. Probably didn't want to give it to Mion. Time froze for a moment. Hanyu whispered something in my ear.
リカ、覚えています。
Oh. You know, this time around, usually when there's been like choices, right? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Because like some of the like previous chapters have had choices, but I've always like clicked the option that's like, oh, do whatever was in the original release, right? This is the first time where I haven't gotten that, and there's like there are choices. All right, let's fuck it. We're fighting fate every step of the way. Fuck it. I remembered. I remember that Keiichi's insensitive decision eventually caused a fatal ending. That was fate. Keiichi was internally thinking that he should give the doll to Mion. She was the only one who didn't get anything, so it'd be natural for him to give it to her. But the hesitation he was feeling was because Mion was such a close friend to him. He'd been treating Mion as if she was a male friend. But it would be weird to give a doll to another boy. He was afraid that if he gave the doll to Mion, he would start looking at her as a girl from that point onward. He wanted to continue his friendship with Mion without thinking about their difference in gender. He didn't want to ruin the relationship they had at that moment. That's why he couldn't give the doll to Mion. Even though she was the only one without a doll, he felt so hesitant. Of course, that was only how he felt. Mion didn't agree. In actuality, she wished he would treat her more like a girl. I walked closer to Keiichi so I could talk to him. If Mion heard me telling Keiichi to give her the doll, she would resist taking it. I had to make sure that no one but Keiichi could hear me. I also had to make this very quick. I poked Keiichi in the back.
Huh?
Keiichi, the person who really wants that doll is the one who's bullying you the most about it. I was going to say that, but Keiichi opened his mouth first even before I could say anything to him.
ああ、わかってるって。
I hadn't said anything to him yet, but Keiichi told me that he knew. I felt confused not knowing what he just meant. I turned around to face Mion, smiling mischievously.
ミオン、俺が持ってたら変態扱いなら、
まあお人形なんて男の子の持つものじゃないよねって言っただけだしさ。
ほう。じゃあお前が持てばバン、ほれ。
Keiichi tossed the doll to Mion as if passing her a basketball, as if forcing her to carry his bag or something. Mion's face quickly turned red. Feeling shy, Keiichi turned away from her. That was surprising. He got my message just by getting a tap on his back. Was Keiichi always that smart? Just one tap was all it took. I don't think he would have done the same in a previous life. This was just a small incident. This world is definitely different from the previous one. Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's all about the small changes. Stop trying to focus on the big, major things, right? And focus on the small things you can affect. Yeah. Or could it be? Perhaps he would have given that doll to Mion even if I didn't poke him in the back. Mayhaps. You know what? Out of Morbius curiosity. Oh, the joy of having save states. We'll just bust a quick save right there. And then we'll just bust a fat load right here. I was hoping Azara challenged him. Cage is contemplating. Fat opens his mouth.
ミオン、俺、
まあお人形なんて。
ほう、ほれ。
Okay. So it is like, no matter what, it's fated. Interesting.
以前の世界の記憶を。
まさかそんなことあるわけがないのです。
I know for a fact that he doesn't have those memories. There might be something imperceptible somewhere inside his heart. True. He might remember some of the regrets he felt in the previous worlds. That's why he strongly felt he should be giving the doll to Mion this time. After repeating so many lives, I'm the only one who can even notice this slight growth of his. But I see it. It's clearly visible to me. Mion, having turned red, insisted that the cute doll would be a much better fit for Reina. Her attitude made it clear that she really wanted the doll, but couldn't be honest about it.
だからさ、おじさん、こういう可愛いお人形、ちゃんとした可愛い女の子に渡した方が私みたいな男女に渡してもほら、人形の
欲しいくせに顔に書いてあるじゃねえかよ。
違う、書いてなんかない。嘘つき、意地悪。
Mion shook her head with an embarrassed look, pretending she wasn't interested in the doll. Everyone here knew that she wanted it. We all looked at Mion with big smiles on our faces.
おいおい、別に女の子じゃないと人形は渡せないとか。こいつは俺と今日の部活で熱い睨み合いをしてくれた親友への贈り物なんだぜ。
そう、ケイちゃんは男の子の友達にも人形を渡すわけ？
まあ確かに選べる範囲があるならわざわざ人形はでもよ、男の世界じゃ相手に悪意がない限り相手の気持ちなんだからよ。変に断ら。
じゃあその女の子でなくても人形を受け取ってもいいんだ。
Everyone thought Mion's reaction was hilarious. Reina couldn't stop chuckling. Satoko and I burst out laughing too. Mion, having realized she was being laughed at, got even more embarrassed.
男が仲間に送って大事にしなかったら承知しないぞ。
おじさんがこの人形が欲しいからもらうんじゃないよ。ケイちゃんが仲間に送るって言ったから、ケイちゃんの顔を立てるために受け取るんだからね。
Hanyu was cracking up too. Man, you even got Hanyu laughing. The whole squad laughing, goddamn. She was laughing in a loud voice, knowing that no one could hear her anyway. Was this really a good way to resolve the problem? I thought that Mion's issue in the previous life was that she wanted Keiichi to treat her like a girl. She got the doll, but Keiichi still wasn't treating her that way. Still, Mion looked very happy. It wasn't a big deal after all. I'm sure that Mion will take that doll with her to bed tonight. She'll kiss it goodnight too. I could bet on that. It was written all over her face.
ようやく受け取ってくれたぜ。人形1個渡すのに手間のかかるやつだぜ。
Keiichi turns around to face us, smiling bitterly.
ケイチくん100点満点かな。僕もそう思いますです。あの意地っ張りのミオンによくお人形を渡ミオンさんも笑っちゃいますわね。欲しいってあんなに顔に書いてあるのに痩せ我慢なんかしちゃって。
違いねえな。
こらおじさんの陰口を言ってるです。こら
みーちゃん、バイト急がなくていいの？遅刻しちゃうよ。
もう覚えてなよ。
Mion seemed like she wanted to stay longer, but after looking at her watch, she started heading to work. Everyone was wearing smiles on their faces. Today was such a fun day. Everyone had lots of fun and no one was hurt. I've repeated the same day so many times before. This time, something was different. It's like I rolled a die and got a 6. And then I rolled it again and got a 6 again. I don't know if this was just a lucky coincidence or if it was meant to be. It's as if the god of fate is celebrating my motivation to fight against him. Okay, I'm here for it. Good times with Oyashiro-sama. Ayo. I was watching TV with Satoko and Hanyu after eating dinner. It was a variety show and the performers were making the audience laugh. We were laughing too.
ざまあないでございますわね。はう。でもとっても痛そうなのです。みぱー。
While the three of us were enjoying ourselves in reality, there was only Satoko and me in the room. I'm the only one who can see Hanyu. Satoko can't see her at all. Hanya responds every time Satoko says anything. Satoko can't hear her, but Hanya still responds to her when she's in a good mood. It's like she's answering a question asked on TV. You could even compare it to playing house. She started playing this game with other people because she can't communicate with anyone else but me. Hanya always attends our club meetings and has a good time there too. If she could communicate with my other friends, she would have been a good match for us. But I don't want to hurt her feelings by thinking about that. If the story of the miracle written in the old scriptures is true, if it's really Hanyu who performed it, she's someone who had tremendous power long ago. But now she doesn't have any spiritual power, and I'm the only one who can even see her. Hanyu has never told me how she lost her power. I just have to assume that her spiritual power diminished over time. There's a legend in the Purade family that says that Oyashiro-san will be reborn if a girl is born to the family 7 generations in a row. With my birth, Hanyu was finally able to communicate with a human for the first time in centuries. Does that mean that Oyashiro-sama has returned? The villager's image of Oyashiro-sama doesn't quite match up with that of Hanyu. Especially when I see her lying on her belly watching TV with Satoko.
確かにそんなことをどこかで聞いたような気もしたが、それってマジだったのか?
This world always has a lot of nice suggestions, but they're mostly out of politeness, right? They're just something you laugh off and reply with, that would be nice. Those ideas generally end as jokes, so it's crazy when they turn real.
吉郎おじさんも大絶賛。昨日のおもちゃ屋での部活、ゲーム中の暴れっぷりは実に見事だったからね。
レナもあんな遊び方や盛り上がり方があるなんて知らなかったかな。ここだけの話ですけど、私の近くにいた子たち、ケイイチさんと同じ宅で盛り上がりたかったって悔しがってましたのよ。ケイイチは何でも楽しそうに遊ぶことに関しては天才的なのです。
You know, I wasn't just playing around. I was giving it my all because I had no choice but to win. I guess we made it look like a lot of fun for the audience, though.
確かに、ケイちゃんは普段の部活においてもとにかくよく盛り上がってくれますからね。
I don't want you here. Get out. Pissing me off. Leave.
監督もケイちゃんがひなみ沢ファイターズに入ってくれたらさぞや盛り上がるだろうって言ってましたし。
Oh boy, the pedophile wants to hang out with me. No thanks. Go away.
言ってましたね。ゆうべ会合の席でも入江先生、前原くんのことをベタ褒めでしたよ。
Isn't that nice? I'm glad the fucking pedo thinks so highly of me. Can you get that one out of here?
ケイイチ
Thank
君
you.
は自分で思ってるよりずっと人を楽しくさせる力があるんだよ。
Why is Shion just here like she's supposed to be here? Why is she just here? It's the middle of the school day. What the fuck?
そうかな。
おじさんだって自分の仲間が可愛いからって推薦したわけじゃないよ。ケイちゃんならこの退任にきっと応えられるって思ったから推薦したわけさ。
僕も同じ席にいましたですが、全然
前原くんは先生が思っているよりもずっと村中で評判なんですね。沖宮界隈でも有名です。
Yeah, I don't care. Shut up.
先日のひなみ沢ファイターズと沖宮タイタンズの試合でのあの助っ人ぶりはもはや現地では伝説的ですからね。
So the match with Kaneda happened again, which was an event out of Chapter 3.
あれはすごかったです。亀田さん目当ての記者の方々も度肝を抜かれてましたよ。
They're talking about that rigged baseball match I set up with Kameda-kun. The public did end up believing that talented pitcher walked me out of fear for my insight. Kameda-kun and I have entered a strange relationship since then, but I'd really rather not talk about it right now.
どうかな、ケイイチ君。レナはケイイチ君にはその力があると思うな。みーちゃんだけの推薦で足りないなら、ケイイチ君ならきっと綿流し実行委員の退任を全うできる。
Whoa, what? That's fucking crazy. Hey, the new guy that just moved in? Hey, he seems like a pretty good guy. Let's put him in charge of our big festival. It's one thing to say like, oh, he should be a part of it. He should be in charge of it? That's crazy. That's crazy. That's also a huge detraction from previous stories, though, I'll give you that much. Watanagashi is an annual village festival held in June. It's supposed to be the biggest event in the village, and most of the people living here gathered together for it. Since this is a major event, they always organize a committee to plan out the festival a few months in advance. The festival's only 2 weeks away, and I just moved to this village. But now they want me to join that community?
だいたいよ、俺実行委員の仕事なんて知らないから何の役にも立てないぜ。
実行委員なんて堅苦しいのは肩書きだ。ケイちゃんに満場一致でお願いしたい役はね、ズバリ叩き売りオークションの司会なんだよ。
なんだよそれ、バナナでも売らされるのか？
そこは先生から説明し、今年のお祭りでは新しい試みとしてオークション風に寄付品の叩き売りをやろうということになって。
そこは複雑な事情があってね、町会で寄付品を集めてそれを商品にしてのみんなで参加できる何かを、過去の役員会でいろいろ大人の事情があって福引き抽選以外の方法で商品を分配したいってことになったんだよ。早い話が昔ばあさんが癇癪を起こしときながら引っ込みがつかなくなったことがあるわけなんです。
Why are you here?
ばあさんって自分でトラブっときながらよく後悔してますよね。まあね。まあそんなわけで福引き以外のイベントで何か楽しく商品を山分けできないかって、それで出た案が寄付品の叩き売りオークションってわけ。
オークションってなんだか面白そうだね。ひょっとするとものすごく安くいいものが買えるかもしれないし、他の人が高値をつけ合うのを見てるのも楽しいしね。しかも寄付品だから元手はただ。実行委員会もなかなかお金儲けがお上手ですわね。売り上げは全部冬の町会温泉旅行の泡麦茶代になるのです。古いのです。フルデさんは泡の出る麦茶はまだまだいけま。
だいたい話は見え、でもよ、俺はオークションの司会なんかやったことないぜ。
でも圭一くんなら売り上げの1割はお小遣いになるとか言われたらものすごい頑張りそう。
Well, yeah, in that case, I'd also step up to the plate too. Like, I've never fucking been no auctioneer, but if they said, hey, you get to keep 10% of the profits, I'd be like, go one, go twice, one, two, three. I'll be a fucking auctioneer.
まあ実績に応じて何か得られるってならそりゃ頑張るだろうな。
逆に実績が出なかったらとんでもない罰ゲームが待ってるかもしれませんでしたよ。
ちょっと待てさ、なんで俺がそんなリスキーな条件を引き受けなければならないんだ。そもそも俺は依頼されてる立場だってことを忘れ、俺はこう見えてもスケジュール多忙でそういうのはマネージャーを通してくれたまえ。
どうよケイちゃん、もし何かご褒美がないといけないってんなら私もケイちゃんを推薦した以上何としても最大限配慮するよ。
ほう、太っ腹じゃねえか。さーて、
罰ゲームを何にするかというのはよくあるけど、ご褒美は何がいいってのは初めてかもしれないね。言われてみれば私たちってつくづく過酷な状況で戦ってますのね。
Reina's right. The whole purpose of our club activity is to escape the punishments we come up with. Even if we win, we never get a prize or reward for it.
めったにない美味しい話に圭一が困っていますのです。みーちゃんの方で何か提案できな、何でもいいよって言われたらかえって思っ。
そうだ、あ、じゃあこんなとこでどう？エンジェルモートのデザートフェスタの入場券とか。おねえ、ケチくさいこと言わないでドーンと3年分くらいプレゼントしちゃえばいいじゃないですか。
あら、それは豪華ではございませんの。
確かデザートフェスタのチケット、そんなの3年分なんて本当に。
もちろん盛り上げてくれないとダメだからね。
大丈夫だよ、圭一くんならきっと大盛り上がりになる。
それについてはというか、どんなめちゃくちゃな売り工場が飛び出すかかなり楽しみです。
たとえタコの入ってないたこ焼きであっても行列させてしまいそうですものね。
That's crazy. I can't ever imagine that happening.
おいおい、さすがにタコなしたこ焼きは無理だろ。
いやいや、ケイちゃんなら見事売りかねないね。
小麦粉の味が素朴でヘルシーとかいい。
お前ら俺をおだててるのかバカにしてるのか微妙だ。
どうですか前原くん、先生も あなたならきっとうまく盛り上げてく
I
れる
keep
と思い
forgetting
ます。
Chia is actually here and part of this conversation. Chia Sensei was also on the committee. She must have backed up Mion's suggestion when she brought my name up at their last meeting.
僕も圭一の口先マジックが見たいのですよ。みぱ
バナナの叩き売りだってさ、
Banana?
その売り工場の切符の良さに感服して買わせるわけだしね。
Did you say banana?
バナナの叩き売りだってさ、その売り工場の切符の良さに感服して買わせるわけだしね。バナナの叩き売りだってさ、
Banana.
その売り工場の切符の良さに感服して買わせるわけだしね。
Oh, it just sounds like a fucking minion.
バナナの叩き売りだってさ、その売り工場の切符の良さに感服して買わせるわけだしね。
I'm sorry, that's fucking killing me though. One more time, give me one more, give me one more. I gotta hear it one more time.
バナナの叩き売りだってさ、その売り工場の切符の良さに感服して買わせるわけだしね。
Banana. Oh my god.
前原圭一ワンマンショーでございましたよ。楽しそうですわね。
おいおい、俺はまだ引き受けると言った覚えはないぞ。
大丈夫だよ。圭一くんならできるよ。
ちぇ、レナめ、他人事だ。
はあ、そんなつもりじゃないのに。
Principal suddenly opened his mouth.
どうかね、前。わしも君ならやれると。男なら一つ、みんなの期待に応えてみんかね。
If I had to, I'm sure I could do it. Mion has made me do so many different things for the club, and I've learned a lot from that. Besides, this would be the first time I could get a reward without having to worry about the punishment. It should be fun, too. This was the first time so many people were counting on me like this. To be honest, it made me pretty happy. Still, I was worried about getting dragged into something that required a lot of work. I couldn't erase that thought from my mind. But I was in Hinamizawa. People in this village would never do anything to betray me. They genuinely believed that it would do a lot to liven up the festival if I became the host of their auction. I've only been here for a short period of time, but I know that the people here are honest and kind.
よっしゃ、俺も男だぜ。そこまで言われちゃ引き受けないわけにはいかない。見てろよ、俺がやるからにはドカンと盛り上げてやるぜ。エンジェルモートのチケットを忘れるなよ。3年どころか10年分くらい進呈したくなるくらいに盛り上げてやるぜ。
よく言ってくれた、ケイちゃん。
Everyone gave me a round of applause. How many times did this happen in my life? Not once. This was the first time I'd ever been applauded.
しかしよ、よく俺みたいな若造を推薦して町会の人が納得してくれたよな。
There are lots of old people in the village committee. I'm a young guy who only just moved here. I've known for a while that Mion has a lot of influence locally, but I couldn't believe that everyone in the community would just accept it like that.
まあ基本的には
Go
頭の
away.
固い年寄り連中ばっかりですけど
Why are
ね。
you here? Why? All of your lines could have easily gone to someone else, other than like, oh yeah, you're also pretty popular over in Okinomiya. I guess that's the one unique line for you, but like, why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. Go
時代も
away.
徐々に変わり始めてるってことです。ひなみ沢もダム戦争に打ち勝って、これからは新しい時代を築き、だから若者歓迎、よそ者飛び入り大歓迎って風にどんどん意識改革をしていかなくちゃならないんだよ。
圭一は若くてよそ者で、しかも受けがいいので。
受けがいいね。どうして俺の知名度がそんなに高いのか不思議でならねえぜ。
多分みーちゃんの罰ゲームと密接な関係があると思うかな。や
っぱりそれか
じゃあこれで決まりですね。先生の方から今夜前原くんのご両親に電話でお話ししますので、一応前原くんの方からもご両親にこの度の件を話しておいてください。
I'm sure my parents will have no problem with it. They won't have any objections to raise, at least. They might ask me why my name was brought up, though. Chie-sensei and the principal went back to the teacher's office after the discussion ended. We were in the middle of lunch break at the moment. Chie-sensei and the principal had come along together, and Mion scared me by saying they all had something to talk to me about. My stomach wasn't digesting my lunch particularly well.
相原さん、聞いてましたよ。すごいじゃないですか。
Thanks, little homie.
町会から推薦を受けるなんてすごい名誉ですよ。
おう、富田君に岡村君、そんな名誉なら君らに譲ってもいいぞ。
無理ですよ。前原さんじゃなくちゃ務まらないです。
I realized the whole class was talking about me. They were saying how fun Watanagashi was going to be and how high their expectations were for it. I've taken on a huge responsibility. I need to do my best to succeed at it.
そうだそうだ、忘れてた。うちのバッチャがね、いっぱいおはぎ学校のみんなにも食べてもらえって持ってこさせられたんだっけ。
Mion clapped her hands as she remembered and took out a box out of her bag. She opened the lid, letting us see a bunch of ohagi neatly packed inside.
あらあら、たくさん入っていますの。クラス全員に食べていただけそうなくらいありますわよ。はあ、かわいい、おいしそう。
バッチャはおはぎを作るのが大好きなんですよ。
Why
ど
are
う
you
いうわけ
here?
か。
Keep irritating me every time you show up on the fucking screen. Why are you here? Why? What purpose do you serve? Go away. Please. I'm begging.
宗平が大好きだったのですよ。
ああ、じっちゃが好きだったらしいね。山盛り食べたらしいよ。
じゃあみーちゃんのおばあちゃんにとってはおはぎは亡くなったおじいちゃんを思い出す大切なものなんだね。
そうなの？
Go away.
じっちゃが好きなのって缶詰だと思ってました。シオンは缶詰がダメなんだよね。
あ、そうなの？どうして？
缶詰臭とあの独特の鉄臭さがどうも苦手で。
あら、人に嫌がるかぼちゃを無理やり食べさせて好き嫌いはいけないとか言ってる人が随分な話でございますのね。
ふふん、実はねちょっとおね。
Yeah! Get her ass!
人が嫌がることを言うなんて最低ですよ。
Kill her.
なんだかわからんが、ミオンが珍しく握ったシオンの弱みらしいな。面白いから普段の裏、ほれほれ。
The reason why Shion doesn't like canned food must have been something pretty funny. Two sisters battled for a while. The machine gun knee kicks Mion launched from close quarters weren't bad, but I don't think she expected Shion to land a capture suplex off it. Guess Shion is the stronger of the two siblings. No!
お姉に言われるくらいなら自分で言います。
I know, and that's why I don't want it to go this way. I don't want you to get what you want. Damn it. I want Mion to tell us and give us every last juicy little detail. Hell, exaggerate the details. Go all in on it. I want to hear you speak, but like, well, I guess the read.
ですね、葛西っていうたちの悪い親父、そいつがですね、純粋無垢だった幼い缶詰の中にはたまに人間の肉が
都市伝説にたまにそういうのがあるね。
あるある。俺たちのとこでも牛丼の肉は実は犬の肉だとか。
Yeah, tell her all the urban myths about
混じってる
food.
とか聞いたこ
Make
とあ
her
る。
never want to eat again.
そんな話がありますの？そんなの聞いてしまったらもう牛丼もハンバーガーも
Well,
食べ
no,
られな
not
く
you,
なりますわ
Sasuke.
ね。
You need to eat your food.
そうなんですよ。私はトラウマを負わされた犠牲者なんです。
同情はしますけど、かぼちゃフルコースの恨みと相殺するにはまだだいぶ足りませんわね。さとこは根に持ちすぎ。僕は美味しくてペロリだって。
なんだかよ、このミオンのおはぎにも何か妙なものが混じってそうな気。
ほう、確かにこの私が持ってきたおは中に何の細工もないってのは確かに不用心だよ。
A hagi that Mion brought. When you consider that it's only natural to suspect that she probably did something to them. What's going on? I felt like I was forgetting something. I didn't remember anything that I was forgetting. It was like one of those deja vu moments. Never been in this situation, but my mind was telling me that I'd been there before.
どうしたのですか？
いや、前にもミオンにおはぎをもらった。これが初めてだよな。
そうなの？みーちゃん。
いや、これが何かの勘違いじゃない？
私の記憶でもミオンさんが学校におはぎを持ってきたのは
はあ、おじさんが持ってきたおはぎだもんだから何か罠があると思って警戒してるんでしょう。
No, let me hear that noise again.
はあ、わかった。おじさんが持ってはあはあはあはあ わかった。おじさんが持ってきたおはぎだもんだから、何か罠があると思って警戒してるんでしょう。
Oh my god. One more time, one more time.
ははわかった。おじさんが持ってきたおはぎだもんだから、何か罠があると思って警戒してるんでしょう。
I love your noises, Mion. I love them so much. はは
わかった。おじさんが持ってきたおはぎだもんだから、
Oh my
何か
fucking
罠があ
god.
ると思って警戒してるんでしょう。そこは威張るとこじゃなく
See,
て、
now my mood's
日
ruined.
頃のお姉の底を
You
反
show
省
up.
すべきとこだと思いますけど。
Like, sure, she's done nothing in this world thus far that we know of to where I should dislike her, you know? She seems to get along quite well with Satoko, which would imply that mayhaps the events of 2 and 5 prior to 1983 didn't play out the same way. Maybe she didn't, pretend to be Mio and show up at school and beat the shit out of Satoko. Because in which case, then, yeah, I should have no issue with her, but, it's hard to not... it's hard to get that memory out of my head. It's not one easily forgotten.
そうだよな。同じおはぎでもレナとかが作ったおはぎなら絶対そんな風には思わない。レナっておはぎ作るの小さいけど丁寧で。
レナ、おはぎなんて作ったことないよ。
What? What was I saying? Why did I say that Reina had made ohagi before? Why would I know that Reina makes her ohagi small but neatly? Huh? I had no idea where that memory was coming from. I could only assume it was an error in my brain. Was saying that this was her first time bringing ohagi to class. As I tilted my head in confusion, everyone started reaching inside the box. Reina took out one for me and put it on the lid. I stared at it closely. What was I so concerned about? Mion said that I was probably concerned that she did something to the ohagi, but it wasn't quite that. I really didn't know how to explain it. I felt like I was forgetting something important. I'd forgotten something important. All I had was the obligation to remember it. In front of me was nothing but a single ohagi that came from Mion's house. I was frustrated, but I really couldn't think of anything. There's no way I could remember it, because I didn't know anything.
ケイイチ、さっきからおはぎをじっと見て。
いや、デジャブだっけ。ほら、たまにないか。初めて見るものなのにさ、過去にすでに見ていたように感じるときって。
ケイイチは過去にもミオンにおはぎをもらったように感じるのですか？
でも気のせいだよな。ミオン自身そんなことは覚えがないって言ってるしさ。
ケイイチ、ありもしない記憶なんて、もしケイイチが覚えているのなら、それは本当にあったことなのですよ。
Rika-chan told me something strange. I didn't usually take her random comments seriously, but ever since I saw her making those predictions in the toy store, I've been curious about her special powers. I felt like she was telling me something deep.
大予言のリカちゃまが言うと、それってつまり輪廻転生とかそういう話なんだろ？
僕は宗教のことはよくわかりませんです。ただ僕が言いたいのは、ケイイチが知っていることならそれはあったことなのです。だからそれを思い出してほしい。気のせいだと片付けないで記憶としてほしい。僕が何を言っているのか。
I was a little surprised by how serious she sounded. I always thought that Rika was just an innocent girl who fooled around all the time, saying things like meep and nipa. All of a sudden, she seemed like a totally different girl. Was I supposed to take it as a joke? The serious look on her face told me it wasn't the time for jokes, though.
リカちゃんがそう言うなら、じゃあ俺は別の世界とかで。
バカにしませんから。全部話どこでどうして。
いつどこでどうして寝ぼけて見た夢なのかもしれないな。
夢でもいいのです。もっと覚えてるはずな。話してください。
What was up with her? She seemed so curious about it. I didn't think the story was that interesting. Her asking so much started making me feel uncomfortable. Still, something told me that I needed to talk to Rika-chan about everything I could. Maybe she could predict my future by reading my dreams. I should tell her everything. After all, she's the shrine maiden for Yashiro-sama.
俺は多分風邪なんだと思う。
My memory was scattered all over my brain like powder. I could see myself standing in front of the door. Mion was there, and someone else was standing there too. I think it was Reina.
それでミオンのやつ、今日言ってるのと同じで、おばあちゃん。
それで
うん。それで、その二人を返した後に。それでさ、ここから先は間違いない。多分、昔読んだ漫画のエピソードと記憶が、そんなことがあるわけだ。
ケイチ、おはぎを食べて、中から
ああ、いや、俺が小学校の頃に読んだ怖い漫画にさ。シオンもさ、小さい頃に怖がらされると、トラウマになって残るっていうやつだよ。
I see. I don't remember much about that comic. I think it was about this girl who had an accident, held a grudge against the person who caused the injury on her face. It was a really cheap plot now that I think about it. Since I was still a little kid, that comic really scared me. In one chapter, the girl casts a curse on the guy's food. He eats a burger with sewing needles inside it, and he goes all, ah! Something like that. It still freaked me out. The image was so grotesque and shocking to me. I grew into a kind of trauma, and for a while I searched for sewing needles in my food every time I ate something. Okay, so that was already something that was like established into his past that he had. And so when he was completely delusional, that's something that came up in his mind. I couldn't eat burgers for a while for that reason. But my parents got concerned and my hunger overcame the trauma. Eventually that experience disappeared into the flow of time.
今でもさ、ちょっとでも怪しい、もちろん、ちょっと考えるだけだ。みんなの弁当をつっつくとき、いちいち中身を洗って、針を混ぜるなんて危ないいたずらなんて、絶対するわけがない。
でも、今でも
未だに忘れられないってことは。
では、そのミーのおはぎからは、出てきたのです、裁縫針が。
ああ、出てきた。
Inside that ohagi, there was a needle, just as I feared. Why was I telling her about something that was just my imagination? Mion and Reina came to see when I took a day off from school I was sick. That never happened, so obviously my brain was just making it up. But I spoke to Rika-chan because she said she wouldn't make fun of me.
ケイチは目の前にあるこのだからさっきから手をつけられない。
I realized that Mion and Reina were also looking at me. They were wondering why I was staring at the ohagi without eating it.
あ、ケイちゃん、お嫌いだったなら無理しなくても。
Mion was assuming that I didn't like ohagi. She felt bad for forcing me to eat something I didn't like. In turn, I felt guilty seeing the sad expression on her face.
お姉のおはぎなんで、中に何か妙なものが仕込まれてるって疑ってるんですよ。
You get out of here. I immediately denied Shion's remark. Good, you shut that bitch down ASAP. I don't care if she says, yo, we need air to breathe. You shut that shit down ASAP. Even if she's spitting pure truth, you shut it down immediately. If she says your name's Keiichi my body, you say, fuck you. No, it's not. No one else will understand what I'm saying. Even I didn't know.
いや、はっきり断言できるぜ。ここに。
ハリー
Why the fuck would you think there's a needle in it? What kind of person do you take me for?
そんなのなんでおじさんが入れるわけ？
当たり前だよ。ミオンは確かにおとなしくお見舞いを持ってくるようなやつじゃない。タバスコを入れるとかそういう冗談はやるかもしれない。シャレになることとならないことのけじめは。だからそんなことは絶対にありえない。
I grabbed the ohagi with my hand. It's right in front of my mouth. I felt the need to check it just in case. But I told myself clearly, hey, you wimp. When are you going to stop being scared of that stupid comic book? Mion brought these ohagi to treat everyone in the class. There's no way she'd put needles inside of these. Forced that stupid memory out of my brain and munched on the ohagi. Yes!
お、うめえじゃねえかよ。
Progress!
うまくて針なんか入ってなかったでしょ。
そりゃそうだ。本当にすまん。自分でもくだらないトラウマにずっと縛られてたって呆れるぜ。
My heart had stopped pounding and I felt relieved. Next moment, I got the urge to say something to Mion. Wasn't the right thing to say, but I just felt like I had to say
おい
it.
ミオン。おはぎうまく。
大きなカバンを担いできた甲斐があったよ。
But he's not talking about the ones right here, right now in the classroom. I know I wanted to tell her that the ohagi was delicious. I was glad I said that to her. Yeah. I was finally released from that odd feeling.
さあさあ、さとこもケイちゃんを見習ってかぼちゃをガブリといきましょう。
How about you swallow a fucking can? Not the food inside. I want you to swallow a fucking can.
よく煮込んでありますから柔らかいですよ。
How about you eat the hard, crunchy can?
シオンさんのお弁当は何を食べてもかぼちゃが出てくるんですもの。私がトラウマになりましたよ。しーちゃんはさとこちゃんのかぼちゃ嫌いを直すのに頑張ってるんだね。
シオンも熱心だよね。将来の妹のつもりなのかね。
By the time I finished eating my ohagi, we had returned to our usual fun lunchtime.
ケイチ、もしもですよ。
うん、もしもなんだよ。
本当に食べ物から裁縫針が出てきた。
そんなことあるわけない。リカちゃん、脅そうったって無駄だぜ。
ケイチ、それでも出てくることがもしもあったなら。
Rika-chan looked at me with a serious face as I joked around. What's gotten into her lately?
しつこいぜ。そんなことは絶対ありえないし、信じない。
Had I just overcome my stupid trauma after all that? That's why I made that firm statement.
わかりましたです。ケイチ、しつこくてごめんなさい。もしも針が出てきたら、それはきっとケイチの勘違いなのですよ。ミーが混ぜたなんて。
ミオンを疑うなってことなんだろ。ああ、と、俺は絶対に仲間を疑わないぞ。
I raised my fist in the air. Rika-chan finally looked happy. Hell yeah. She smiled as if she was relieved by my words. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. The items donated for the auction were gathered at the Hurure Shrine.
ほう、お中元のタオルセットとか使い古した家具あたりまでは想像してたが、
すごいね。テレビや冷蔵庫まである。それにこれまだ新品同然だね。
驚いたでしょう。その雑機器関係のお店から余り物とか店頭展示品とか売り物にはならないけどまだまだ新品同然のものをいろいろと供出して、片遅れ品とかをあまり気にしないならちょっとは立派なもんでしょ。
電化製品に貼り付けてある日焼けした新製品というシールが
いやいや、サトコ、そういうのが逆にポイント高い。他人の使用済みの道具よりは多少すすけてても未使用の方が気持ちよく使えるってもんだ。
みー、最近の若者は潔癖なのです。私はあんまりそういうの気にしないから。
レナさんはさっきから家具類に興味があるみたいですね。
Why are you suddenly just a part of things all of a sudden? Why are you just part of the group now? I don't like that. You're pissing me off. But when this chapter started, when Rika came to consciousness after falling off a cliff, right? There wasn't no Shion. All right? We went to the fucking thing, the competition at the toy store. There wasn't no Shion. All right? But now all of a sudden she's all involved with the group. She's hanging out and around in Hinamizawa like it's nothing. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. It's pissing me off. I don't like this.
一人暮らしでも考えてるんですか？
ああ、うん。お父さんとお家の模様替えをしようって話になってるの。でもちゃんとした家具屋さんで買おうとすると高いから、こういうリサイクル品を探してたの。模様替えって家具まで買えちゃうんで、ずいぶん大掛かりですのね。うん、うちのお父さんね、つい最近だから新生活のための心機一転ってことで大掛かりに行きたいの。
Interesting. So is that gonna be the play here? Right? Like this is gonna like play out like some ideal world essentially. You know, like, oh, Shion's here, she's a part of the group, she doesn't harbor any negative feelings towards Satoko or sister. She's, ingrained in the group. She even gets along well with Satoko. Reina and her dad aren't dealing with Rina and Tepe. Then we have this, little moment here with Keiichi and Rika where Keiichi, is like, yeah, I'll never doubt my friends. He got to finally tell Mion that, the food was delicious, the thing he always wanted to tell her and whatnot. But then, like, the night of Watanagashi is going to happen, and Tomitake and Takano are going to die in some capacity. But that's going to happen no matter what. Okay. Honestly, I'm kind of curious. If this is just the perfect, ideal life essentially playing out for everyone, how does that world react to what is inevitable? That's interesting.
レナのお父さんは就職したのですか?
Yeah, now Rika's all interested, like, oh? Rika-chan asked her. I was thinking the same thing. That mean Reina's father was unemployed until recently?
お母さんと別れてから丸々1年就職しよう。レナも怒ってたんだよ。ちゃんと働きなさいって。
And see, Reina's very open with the friend group, right? Because before, no one really knew about the divorce. That's why Keiichi was like, oh yeah, I bet you spent a lot of time with your mom. You look just like your mom. Reina explained that with her usual smile, so it took me a moment to realize how serious it was. If what she said was true, her parents were divorced, and she wasn't living in a very good family environment. Reina talked about it like it was nothing, because she trusts the homies.
お母さんとお父さんが別れたんで。茨城の町でね。それでお父さんとレナはひなみ沢に戻ってきたんだけどね。
See, she's just casually telling the homies about it.
お父さん、離婚のショックからずっと立ち直れなくて、ずっと寝たり、ぼーっとしたり、遊んだりしてるだけだった。
Okay. So essentially, Rika has this moment where she realizes, like, okay, Keiichi doesn't seem to be suffering from any kind of delusions or whatnot. He says he would trust Mio no matter what. He knows his friends would never betray him like that. She's confident that, like, Keiichi isn't going to be the one to suffer from Rule X, right? And then now we're having this moment with Reina where she's, like, being very open about, what her parents went through, what her dad's been dealing with, what she's dealt with, in the aftermath of it, being very open with her friends, being very honest with her friends and whatnot. And she's gonna come to the realization, like, okay, so it's not Reina who's gonna fall victim to Rule X this time around. So I'm guessing then that's probably why they're, like, really working Shion into this story then, as, like, part of the group. So that after we have a scene with Reina, then there's a follow-up scene with Shion at some point, where, she's like, oh wow, so I guess it seems like it's not gonna be Shion either who falls victim to Rule X.
離婚も失恋も相手を愛した分だけ傷も深まります。その落ち込みの深さは決して悪いものじゃないと私は思いますけど。
そんなロマンチックな話ならいいんだけど、それでお父さんいつの間にやら悪いお店に入り、ある日預金通帳を見てひどい金遣いにびっ。
レナのお母さんはさ、相当稼いでたらしいんだよね。そのおかげでだいぶたくさんの慰謝料をもらってたらしい。
そのせいでお父さんは働かなくても生活、それが立ち直りを遅れさせちゃった原因の一つかもしれない。
それは一理ある。お金に余裕がなかったら働かざるを得ない。そうすりゃ忙しくなって落ち込んでる暇なんかなくなるもんな。
朝起きて登校や出勤をしてっていう当たり前の生活習慣は乱れ。私も学園から抜け出してきた後、しばらく無職な生活をしてたことありますから。
お家に引きこもって一人でうじうじしているのが一番いけます。そうだね、リカちゃんの言う通りだったんだよ。だからレナね、お父さんときっぱり話をしたの。家長としての責任とか親としての自立とか、そういう話を。
レナって普段はチャラけてるけど、ここ一番ではきっちりしてるからな。
Very true.
親が相手でもきっちりってのはさすがだぜ。
そんなことないよ。レナも最初はショックだったよ。だってお父さんなんだか知らない女の人に、娘としてはショックだよ。 それでレナは
And
ど
then
うしたのですか？
what happened with said lady?
うん、一人で悩んでるうちは全然悪いことばかり考えちゃって、だからみーちゃんに打ち明けて相談してみたの。
私は話を聞いて相槌をレナが自分で考えをきっちり整理して父親とちゃんと話をするべきだって結論したんだよ。
Still, she went to the homie with her concerns, like, "Hey, I just need a friend to talk to about this." And the homie was like, "Hey, I got you. I'm all ears. Hit me with it."
相談なんてとんでもない。
いや、そういうのは大事だろう。
Yes.
人に話すことで悩みってのは
Yes.
結構冷静に考えられるもんだしな。
Yes. Yeah.
そういうもんですかね。
Yes.
相談する程度で解決する悩みならその程度だったってことじゃないんです
Fuck
か？
you. Maybe your problem isn't that
そん
serious.
なことないよ、しーちゃん。
Asshole.
私もみーちゃんと話をするまでは相手の女の人を闇討ちしようとか、でもよくよく考えてみればそんなの全然最善の解決策じゃない。まず話し合うことから始めないとね。それでレナは話し合ってどうしたのですか？うん、お父さんがグダグダしてるのはお金のせいだってことにな、口座を別の銀行に移し替えて通帳と印鑑はレナが預かることになった。だからお父さんは毎月私からお小遣いをもらってるんだよ。なんだかレナさんのお家は親と子が逆転してしまってますわね。
Just imagine, like, sorry, pops, you're spending too much money on whores and booze. Gonna have to cut you off. Like, I run the bank now, so you want these funds, you gotta come through me. Everyone else laughed along with Satoko. I wasn't sure if I should laugh, but I saw Reina laughing too.
結局さ、むやみやたらな大金がレナの金銭感覚が戻れば変なお店にも行かなくなるし、ちゃんと働かなくちゃいけないって気にもなるからね。
でもあれはいいタイミング。お父さん知らない女の人のマンションの頭金を払おうとしている矢先だったの。
Girl, you just said the word mansion, didn't you?
金銭感覚が戻れ
No,
ば
not-
変なお店にも行かなくなるし。
危ないところだっ
Oh,
た。
I see the line wasn't finished, so it's not popping up in the log.
でもあれはいいタイミングだった。お父さん知らない女の人のマンションの頭金を払おうとしている矢先だったの。危ないところだった。
You know, you said mansion. Like, I get it was a luxurious apartment apparently, but like, was it just an apartment?
レナが笑顔で話す割にはよくよく聞いてみると
Yeah?
随分ヘビーな話だな。一歩間違えば家庭崩壊だったんだよな。
そうだね。もしあの時私がみーちゃんに相談しなくてうじうじと今日を迎えていたら今頃その女の人を殺そうなんて考えていたかもしれない。
Everyone laughed at hearing such a dangerous thing come out of Reina's mouth. Reina laughed too. I saw something serious in her eyes. It's probably true that she once thought about murdering that lady. She seduced Reina's father so that she could get money out of him. Knowing how short-tempered I am, I might do the same if that happened to me. I think she made the right decision in talking to Mion instead of being irrational.
偉いよな。家族の問題なんて恥ずかしくてなかなか話せるもんじゃないぜ。
みーちゃんに打ち明けようと踏ん切りをつけ決め手になったのは夢なの。
Dream?
夢ですか？
Yeah, that Rika's gonna be like, what, dream? What dream did you have? Fill me in. What dream? Oh, actually, that makes sense. Keiichi and Reina are like the two that are like able to like defy it, right? Because of the moment they shared at the end of chapter 6.
うん、あの頃は布団の中で、だからきっと夢の中でまで私は悩んでたんだと思うの。
In my dream, I thought about what would happen to me if I didn't do anything. I don't know if what I saw was my imagination or a prediction of the future.
夢の中の未来ではお父さんはその知らない女の人ともっともっと仲良くなってて、とうとうお家にまで連れ込むようになってるの。
My dad and I don't smoke, but there was an ashtray in the living room. The futon in our guest room was now hers. In the bathroom, there was a toothbrush and shampoo I'd never choose to buy. It was an unusual sight.
それはとても嫌な、いえ、辛いシチュエーションですわね。
Satoko never told me, but I heard she also lost her parents. I heard that she went through tough times when she was taken in by her aunt and uncle. Someone told me about that once. Satoko seemed to understand Reina's pain very well.
うん、それはとても辛いシチュエーション。私は家に居場所がなくなって、だんだんと追い詰められていくの。それで、ちょっとした些細なきっかけで、
夢にしては嫌に生々しい展開。それで
そしたらもう誰にも殺しのことを知られたくない。毎日毎日を死体、その場を離れたら誰かに死体を見つけ。
嫌な未来だな。夢の中だけで済んでよかったと思うぜ。
あれは夢だったのかな。私はね、あれはきっとそのまま何も。だから翌朝目が覚めた時、私とお父さんの家なのに、そしてその夢が現実になるのが、そこまで追い詰められたらもうみーちゃんに打ち明けるのにためらいはなかったね。
レナがものすごい神妙な顔で、おじさんはてっきり変な検査薬で陽性でも出ちゃったんじゃないかと真面目に思ったよ。まあ実際今だから笑い話だけど、
みーちゃんは本当に頼りになったよ。
True. That's big homie.
落ち着いて私の話を聞いてくれて、現実的な解決の糸口を探ってくれた。それでやっぱり親子でちゃんと話さないとダメだっていう当たり前の到達点。それは夢ではなかったかもしれません。そうだね、ただの夢じゃなかったの。
もしその夢を見なかったら、レナはミオンに打ち明けなかった可能性も。レナの人生を決めた重要な夢だぜ。
夢か。
Anything you would like to share with the class, Shion? Have you been having any dreams of some kind?
あんたも夢を見るんだ。
Oh? Have you been having dreams, Shion? Since you're obviously such a large part of our group now, would you mind sharing what you've seen in your dreams? And what steps you have taken to avoid said scenes, mayhaps?
へえ。
Shion had said something in a small voice. Only Mion picked up on what it was. I don't know what she said, but based on Mion's reaction, she must have said something serious. By the way, Shion usually went to school in Okinomiya. Yeah, now you're gonna fill me in on why Shion's here? However, she's been coming to the school in Hinamizawa lately. I don't know why she chose to come this far, but she seemed to be having fun taking care of Satoko. I had no idea what brought Shion and Satoko together. Okay, she had the fucking dream about... She had her own fucking dream / nightmare visions of another world about what would happen. She didn't like the outcome. She decided I wasn't doing right by fucking Satoshi's last words or whatever. Wait, weren't they on bad terms once? Huh? Is that true? Were they always that close? Or not? Huh?
だから人と相談するのはとても大事。
We'll have fun in a normal way. We'll laugh together in a normal way. We'll fall in love in a normal way. We won't doubt each other. We'll trust each other.
仲間はただの遊び友達じゃない。本当に大切なことを打ち明けられる重要な存在なんだって。そんな当たり前のことに気づいたの。
そうだな。だとしたらレナにとっては親子の問題を解決しただけでなく、仲間の重要さにも気づけたわけなんだな。
うん。
Our friendship, baby.
だから私も誰かが悩みを持ったら絶対に力だから、私が打ち明けるに足る仲間だと信じてほしい。とても大切なことをレナが言っていますです。
Rika-chan is right. We all nodded at her without joking around. A moment later, we heard someone locking the door. We were all surprised. The person didn't mean to lock the door. She must have locked it by accident, not knowing that it was already open. She turned the knob, thinking that it was now unlocked.
あれ、誰か中におった？
The lady knocked on the door. I could hear several other people outside the door.
今開けます。
Leon replied in a loud voice and walked toward the door. I heard her greeting the ladies from the town
ちょ
council.
っとみんな。
なんだなんだ、どうした？
I immediately saw why Mion called us over. The people from the village committee had brought another donation. It was an old cupboard. We all helped to carry it inside the room. As I walked through the door, I realized the Higurashi were starting to cry, taking over from the cicadas.
ああ、前原く。 もうみんながあんたしか適任がいないんって太鼓判押すんよ。だからおばさん、前原くんの司会が楽し
あ、いやせいぜい頑張りますので、あまり期待しないでくれると嬉しいです。
そんなこと言っちゃって。今日ここに来たのも売り物を吟味して売り文句を考えておきたいからなんです。当日は期待しましょう。
したら叩き売りはちゃんと来ないかんね。
The other lady smiled and told me they were looking forward to it. It hadn't been that long since I moved to this village. Even these people offered me a position of huge responsibility during the festival. So you could say that they've accepted me as a member of the village. I was just thinking that in my head too about like, how this is part of like this idyllic world, right? Because like in chapter 1, Keiichi felt like, the entire village was against him. Everyone was out to get him, right? But now like, in this one, it's like, oh yeah, like everyone loves you, Keiichi. The entire village is so happy that you're stepping up to, be a part of this and everything. We're so excited to see what you can pull off. I caused so much trouble where I lived before that I couldn't even go outside. Right. And that probably plays a part into his delusions in chapter 1, right? Now that we know about his own actual past, right? About what he did before moving to Inamizawa. As it was probably that guilt that he carried with him about like, oh yeah, everyone probably already thinks I'm a piece of shit. They've already judged me before they know anything about me, right? But they're accepting me as a member of the village? I was so happy. I felt bad that I still hadn't learned all their names. I was going to do my best to entertain the villagers who were supporting me.
ミオンちゃんはどうする？まだ残るんかいね。
ああ、いや、もう私たちも帰ります。もういいよね、
まあ雰囲気さえつかめりゃなるようになるだろう。
綿流しには興味ないんだけど、ケイちゃんの司会は見たいな。私も来ようかな。
You don't have to.
シオンさんもぜひいらっしゃいませ。
Okay. I guess if Satoko's inviting you, I'm not gonna object.
みんなで一緒に騒ぐのは楽しいですわよ。
Yeah, I guess it would be great fun, sure.
私は反対。
I also disagree. Mion's totally right.
シオンは沖宮に住んでるんだから、沖宮の祭りにでも
So
行っちゃ
true,
え。
bestie. On God.
レナはシーちゃんが来るの賛成。
You know, Reina is a real one. I think she's onto something here.
シーちゃんが来るとミーちゃんが面白くなる。
Yo, I can't really disagree with that. Reina's kind of onto something.
では多数決により C の参加は決定なのですよ。
Yo, Rika's always telling it how it is. She's definitely right. She should be here.
というわけです、お姉。当日は私のせいでお姉の地味っぷりが露呈しちゃうかもしれませんけど、まあ仲良くしてくださいね。
I disagree. I think she should kill you. Obviously, violence does not solve our problems. But like, figuratively, she should kill you. In a figurative sense, she should absolutely annihilate you. In a very figurative manner, she should dismember you and burn your pieces into ashes and scatter your ashes into a sewer. Figuratively, of course.
シオン嫌い、ジオン嫌い、ジオン嫌い。
And that's why Mion's a real one. Always telling it how it is. Whatever Mion says, I know they're actually close. The more Mion tried to refuse her, the more it was obvious how close they really were.
じゃあでよ。忘れ物とかない？明かり消すよ。
Made sure that we didn't leave anything inside and left the room. I looked around the shrine grounds while Mion locked the door. This big place will be filled with people on the day of Watanagashi.
このだだっ広い境内がお祭り一色になるんだよな。なんだか全然想像がつかないぜ。すっげえ楽しみだ。
模擬店とかがいっぱい並んで人もものすごいたくさん来るんだよ。きっと圭一くんもびっくりするかな年に一度なんてケチなことを言わず季節のたびにやってくれてもいいんですのにね。
そういや、季節のたびに来る人はいたね。
I wonder who it could be.
はい、そんな人。
あ、それは俺もこの間会ったカメラマン風の人だろ。名前はなんて言ったっけ？
Tiro Jomitake.
圭一は富武を知っていますのです。
そうそう、富武さんだった。いや、先日の帰り道で会ってさ、ミオンとレナに教えてもらっただけで、妙にたくましい体つきの割に季節のたびにひなみ沢に来てる熱心な旅行写真家なんだろ。
自称でございますけどね。
あの人が来ると
That is
今年ももう綿流しだなって気がするよ。
That is true. Now she's onto something. That is what he claims he does, right? He claims he's a photographer, but we know he's a military man. Those dog tags ain't for show. And then we gotta remember what Akasaka was saying, you know, at the end of the last chapter, right? About how he feels like there was some kind of cover-up regarding Hinamizawa, and that mayhaps the defense forces were involved. Was it the Self-Defense Force, I think is what it is? The SDF, I think that's what it stands for. But he believes that the military might be involved in some capacity. So maybe Tomitake is a military man who maybe let out a secret that someone should have known about, or maybe he was in on the thing, but like they decided to dispose of him once they got what they wanted. Maybe even the same with maybe Takano's in on it. Maybe they're both in on it, right? On whatever it is. Fuck if I know at this point. But maybe they're in on it. They realize, you know what? They've become too big of a liability. It's the night of Watanagashi. No one's gonna notice if a body turns up. Let's get rid of them.
それで綿流しが終わると本格的に夏が始まるんだよね。
そうだね。でも今年は暑くなるのが早いからもうセミが鳴いてるけどね。異常気象とかテレビで言ってますわね。温暖化がどうしたこうしたとよく聞きますわ。
This thing called global warming, whatever the fuck that is.
暑い夏、大いに結構じゃねえか。
Leave it to Keiichi. Like, yeah, something this thing called global warming going on. Well, shit, I like it when my summers are nice and hot. Sounds like a good thing to me.
夏が涼しかったらなんだかつまらないぞ。
そうですね。季節通りの気候の方が冷夏や暖冬はなんだか損した気になります。
I like. I'm not in favor of global warming by any means, but I definitely don't mind a warm winter. All right. I definitely don't mind a warm winter. You keep it from being cold, as long as it's, you know, naturally being kept from being cold. I'm all about that. That sounds pretty fucking tight, actually.
夏に負けないくらいこの夏の私たちも熱くいこう。綿流し祭。何人だ？
Twins, the kids, the couple. That's what, 6? Looking at 6?
綿流し祭6強爆闘だね。
6, I can count.
今年の綿流しもみんなで一緒に楽しく過ごせますですよ。楽しく過ごせるといいね。
お、レナは知らん。リカちゃんのは希望的憶測じゃねえんだぜ。本当の予言なんだぜ。だからリカちゃんが当日は楽しくなるって言ったら、だってこれは運命なんだから。そうだろリカちゃん。はい、
運命なのですよ。
Rika-chan smiled with a nipa. Her smile assured me that the day of Watanagashi was going to be a great one for us.
当日さ、すぐにオークションってわけじゃねえんだろ。
うん、始まるのは奉納演舞の一つ前だから、夕方からならみんなで一緒に遊ぶ時間は十分にあるよ。
そうですわよね。初めてのお祭りなのに一緒に遊べないなんて気の毒ですもの。
ケイちゃんの叩き売りを楽しんだ後はリカちゃまの奉納演舞ですか。なかなかいいじゃないですか。
ということは僕は圭一の司会を最後まで見られず途中で演舞の準備に行か。
へえ、リカちゃんも出番があるのか。演舞ってなんだ。やっぱり古出神社の巫女さんだから何か神事でもやるわけか。
綿流しの名の通りお布団の綿を清める演舞と儀式があるの。リカちゃんがとっても頑張るから圭一くんもいっぱい応援してあげてね。それでね、リカちゃんが巫女さん装束で重い細工をフラフラしながら振るうのがね、とってもお持ち帰り。
Never seen a real shrine maiden before. I'm sure Rika-chan really will look adorable. I was looking more and more forward to the Watanagashi festival. Reina, Mion, Shion, Satoko, Rika-chan, and I. The 6 of us will definitely have a great time there. How many more days did we have? Never been this excited about a festival in my life. Okay. Had to show us the transition to nighttime, I guess. Sure. Satoko's snoring sounded so subtle while I stood by the window.
さとこ
God damn. Just the pure quiet, just being interrupted by. That's so fucking great. Like, Rika just barely whispering the fucking loudest snore you've ever fucking heard. That's hilarious. I could tell that she was sound asleep.
いびきが可愛いのですよ
I would not call that cute in the slightest. It's fucking hilarious, but I wouldn't call it cute. Hanya laughs and tries to poke Satoko's nose. I looked up at the sky. Nothing was different about the moon, but the moonlight seemed warmer than usual to me.
リカは機嫌がいいようなのです確かにそうかもしれない
I realized it only after Hanya pointed it out. I really was in a very good mood. Otherwise I wouldn't be enjoying the view of the sky on a humid night like this. I felt like bringing a toast to the moon. As I rooted around the back of the closet, Hanya spoke to me, sounding noticeably upset.
リカお酒はダメなのですよいいじゃない今夜くらい
Hanya doesn't like alcohol. If I drink, Hanya will also taste it, so she always complains when I try to drink. That's why I usually drink only when Hanya is far away from me. Of course, she'll know right away when I do, but it's too late by then.
ダメですダメですリカにはワインは早いのです
I mean, technically, no. She's apparently like over 100 years old, so like...
リカは私リカが飲みたいものはダメです僕はダメです今日は喧嘩はなしだ分かったわそれならいいでしょワインのあの匂いが嫌いなのですだからダメ
Hanya jumped around and complained. She's making a lot of noise right where Satoko's sleeping.
やめなさいサトコが残念僕はリカ以外にはあったんべはは
Oh yeah.
あんたはたまに身の程をわきまえないわね
You think you could just mock me like that? Alright, we're drinking this straight. We ain't cutting it with nothing. Gluck, gluck, gluck. I went to the refrigerator and took out a pack of orange juice and the spicy kimchi I typically use for a punishment.
はい問題私がおつまみにオレンジジュースで割った甘いワインを飲んで一緒に月を楽し
Hanya clenched her lips while jumping up and down, ready to burst into tears. She should be disciplined for being that noisy, but she never has been, since I'm the only one who can hear her. Besides, she's like air, so I can't even give her a spanking. Hanya loves sweets, but she really hates spicy food.
いいか飛び跳ねるのはおやめなさいませ
Satoko woke up suddenly and I had to hide my glass in a hurry. Satoko doesn't know about my drinking habit.
今何時だと思っ
She fell asleep again after speaking.
ほらこの安眠妨害
Just like I'm the only one who can see her, I'm usually the only one who can hear the noise she makes. However, that's not the case all the time. Hanya does exist in this world. Sometimes people can actually hear her and feel her existence. Doesn't happen too often, most people think that they just heard some random noise. Based on my experience, people who are in a critical condition, like Satoko, tend to hear her more often. When I say critical condition, I mean who've reached the L4 stage, as Idia would describe it. At that stage, there's nothing that can be done anymore. So that must be in relation to whatever the whatever illness it is that plagues the people of Hinamizawa, right? Because we know, like, in the storehouse, like, in chapters 2 and 5, when Shion's in there, she hears what sounds like a child jumping up and down, right? Similar to, like, what we hear from Hanyu here. Or, like, Keiichi in chapter 1, he feels like there's someone always behind him. He feels like there's an extra set of footsteps behind him. Feels like there's someone definitely there, but he only ever hears it. He doesn't see it. And Shion also dealt with that, too. And they say Satoshi was dealing with that, right? Because Reina had a conversation with Satoshi at some point. I think we learned this during chapters 2 or at least during chapter 5, when Shion was talking with Reina, I believe, in 82. That Satoshi was also like hearing what he thought was Oyashiro-sama around him, and obviously we know Reina also dealt with similar things as well. Okay. Interesting. So they present it to us as, the sicker you get, you're able to, hear Hanyu, but in reality, it's once you reach that stage, your, I guess, brain has deteriorated to a point where you're facing delusion, experiencing severe delusions. So it seems like Irie, whatever this illness is that plagues Hinamizawa, it seems like Irie is aware of it. And who knows, maybe he himself suffers from it. Maybe someone he cares about suffers from it. Because that's the thing, like, fucking Rika, when they were doing like the checkup thing, Rika said like she knows why Irie is so passionate about this research and whatnot. Clearly he has some deeper connection to it. But yeah, it does seem like Irie is trying to treat whatever this illness is that is within Hinamizawa, right? Interesting. They will feel the existence and hear the noise of someone they can't see. That would really mess with their mind. Hanyu stopped jumping up and down and gave up as I started pouring alcohol into my glass. I wasn't drinking because I wanted to be mean to Hanyu. In fact, I always wish she would enjoy it too. Poured only a little bit of wine inside the glass and diluted it with plenty of orange juice. In fact, this cocktail is pretty much just juice. I also put some crushed ice inside the glass. With that, it looked like a real cocktail they serve at the bar. I looked at the edge of the glass to see how she'd react. Hanyu has been scared of that kimchi punishment for a while. As I put it back inside the refrigerator, she seemed relieved. I took the glass and headed back to the window. There was no breeze, but it seemed a little cooler. It's the miracle.
僕たちの望む未来に最も近い位置からのスタートという意味では、リカのその例えは正しいと思いますのです。
The miracle won't have happened until we actually reach the end goal, right? But we're at a good starting position. That is a good way to describe it. Our starting position is very solid compared to any of the other times
で
around.
も、これはリカが期待するような意味の奇跡ではありませんですよ。
I knew what she was trying to say. She was telling me not to expect too much. The die is designed to have 6 sides. It's not a miracle if I roll it and get a 6. A true miracle is when I roll it once but get a 10, just like what happened with Keiichi in my previous life. In other words, a miracle is something that would normally never happen. Keiichi gave the doll to Mion, Reina spoke with her father, And Shion started taking care of Satoko after remembering her promise to Satoshi. That was all because they had those intentions somewhere in their hearts. It was only a side of their die that was engraved there already. But still, even if you couldn't call 3 dice rolling this well a miracle, it did mean good fortune.
リカが頑張ろうという強い意志を見せたので、天の神様が
あんたも神様じゃなかったの？
リカは僕をいじめる時だけ神様扱いしますです。
冗談よ。お願いだからいじけないで。そんなわけだから。今夜はとても機嫌がいいのよ。
I lift up the glass of orange wine and give a toast to the moon. It tasted like nothing but sweet orange juice. It's funny to see Hanyu making a happy face as I took a sip.
今度こそ昭和58年
逃れることがゴールのすごろくなのだとしたら、これほど幸先のいいスタートはもう二度とないかもしれない。
No matter how hard I tried to prevent things from happening, there were some things I could never control. It's such a huge letdown when that happens. Even after trying so hard, something renders my efforts infertile. I'd probably been wasting my time for so long because I was trying to escape from that pain. For the first time in my life, then, I've been blessed with a favorable situation. Everything seems perfect in this world. There's no reason for me to be depressed. It's like the weather is perfect and the wind is blowing in just the right way. If I failed to put my ship out to sea, there's nothing to pin the blame on. I understood what Hanyu was trying to say with the concerned look on her face. If I didn't escape my death under this fortunate situation, I have to accept that my fate wasn't something that could be changed. This is an ideal world where all of my friends overcame their problems. I was always in a depressing world, but this time, all the pieces of the puzzle matched. If I couldn't change my fate in this world, then it was proof that I couldn't change it in any world. That was the ending that I've been afraid of for a long time. Loss of hope, and the death of my soul. Of the pair of us, I was probably the only one who would die. Hanyu will most likely remain there even if my spirit disappears. She must be afraid of being alone after I lose myself. That's why she's telling me not to expect too much. I bit down on an ice chip inside my mouth. It was pleasantly cold.
羽生、何度も繰り返した話で申し訳ないんだけど。い
いのです。どうしてリカが必ず
強い意志は。ということは、私が昭和58年に必ず殺されるのは。
おそらくそうだと思いますです。
フルでリカを殺して、誰がどんな得をするのかしら。
That's why it's such a difficult one to answer, because there is no, like, even theoretical answer that jumps out at me, like, oh, obviously this person.
強い意志があるのですから、おそらくは明白な動機があるものと思いますです。
Right.
自分で言うのも嫌だけど、フルでリカは村人みんなに好かれていると思う。
In fact, I go so far to say I think most people love Rika Furude.
一般的な村人に殺害動機があるとは思えない。
True. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. So if we assume some kind of outsider then... Interesting. Okay, no, that is coming from outside. There's a storm outside. I was thinking it was in the game for a moment. I'm like, what the fuck? Is there thunder effects going on? No, that's outside my window. Okay. Villager, not a villager. Someone with motive to kill her. More likely an outsider of some kind. That's the thing, at this point you can't really say, with this, ideal world that we're in right now, you wouldn't even be able to go so far as to say Keiichi is an outsider, because he's been very much welcomed into the village and he feels like, he himself feels like he's actually a part of the village, right?
少なくともこの村に住まう人
Right,
間
the
である
people
以上
who live in this
リカに
village.
好意を抱かない人間はいないはずなのです。
See, like, for a brief moment, I kind of thought of Oishi. I don't really see, like, a strong motive there, because his beef is with the Sonozakis, right? But obviously, if he thinks all three of the big families are involved, he would think that Rika is connected in some way as well.
あんたのおかげでね。今のは感謝の言葉よ。まあいいわ。長いこと疑ってきた園崎本家も違った。となると、私を殺したい人間や勢力が思いつかない。
むしろリカにとっては世界中のどこよりもこの
そうね。世界中のどこより私を殺そうとする人間がいるどころか、私を守ろうという人間がいるはずなのに。
For a long time, I've been refusing help from all those people who were trying to keep me safe.
リカ、やはり入江たちを。
People in this village love and cherish me. No matter what, they never save me when I try to escape the fate of my death. I spoke to several villagers in the past, but they never believed me, and none of them saved me in the end. They probably didn't believe me because I had no idea who was trying to kill me or what their motive was. If I could explain that, people might be more accepting of my story. But there's nothing I can do about that. No one would believe a little girl saying she's going to be killed without rhyme or reason. All they think of me as is the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, the leader of the Hurade family. They do cherish me, but they won't protect me with their lives. On the other hand, Irie and his people are totally different. They realize how special I am. They would try to make sure that nothing happens to me. If I confessed to them that my life was in danger, I'm sure they would do their best to prevent it. They have all the means to protect me from a violent end. So, wait. Are we implying then that whatever this condition going around in Hinamizawa is, Rika herself also suffers from it? However, none of it really worked in the past. It's not that they're unreliable, it's because Takano, the one responsible for protecting me, also gets killed on the same day every time. Interesting. In other words, asking for her help is completely useless. She's very reliable, but she also isn't. It's ironic that I'm the only one who knows the reason why they can never save me.
それが狙いなのかしら。富武と高野を殺し、私を守る者を排除して、それから殺す。
Oh. Okay. Okay. That's big. That's big. Okay. Okay. Because that's always been like the one thing that's like, because, in chapter 4, Rika tells Akasaka that she's the one destined to die, but never brings up Tomitake or Takano, and yet that's the one constant every time. So Tomitake and Takano probably aren't bad people, mayhaps? Interesting. But they're the ones who would actually go out of their way to protect Rika, unlike any of the villagers who, have trouble believing her. Tomitake and Takano would go out of their way to protect her, and that's part of why they get killed, why they're destined to die, is because whoever it is going after Rika knows that Tomitake and Takano would protect her. So they pretty much remove any chance of her being protected. Interesting. And that's probably why, Irie, quote unquote, takes his own life. We don't know for sure if that's actually how he goes out. That's how they constantly report it, but we've never actually seen it happen ourselves. We don't know if that's not being staged as a suicide. Because clearly she says Irie and Takano are dependable, but they both, Irie also ends up losing his life at some point.
確かに高野たちの死はリカの死と密接に関係する先触れなのです。
同じ運命なら、いや、
Right.
同じ犯人が
Because
同
they
じ
even
目
said at the
的でやってい
beginning
る
that
犯行なら、
Rika's death is connected to Rule Y, right? As one of the guaranteed deaths. Which is connected to Tomitake and Takano. They are connected. Sometimes she gets taken out because of Rule Z, but it's inherently connected to Rule Y. Okay, I see you.
あの二人の死をなんとか覆すことで、
Oh!
私の運命もまた
So instead
覆せるんじゃないかしら。
of focusing on saving herself, she focuses on saving the people who could save her. Okay.
リカは多分覚えていませんですが、
Oh, did we?
ずいぶん前にもそう言って実行したことがありましたです。
The deaths of Takano and Tomitake mean the loss of my protection. Because the two of them die, the suspect is able to kill me. That's why I've tried to prevent their deaths somehow. But they never believed me. I tried so hard to persuade them, but they didn't listen. I eventually gave up and just thought of their deaths as fated to happen. It's the same hopeless feeling I used to have toward my parents when I was able to go farther back in time. When I found out that death was inevitable, I lost interest in them. Oh. After all the time had passed, I forgot how hard I used to try to prevent my parents' deaths.
それにリカは
まあね、連中は明らかに私たちをモルモットだと思ってるし。
I support them so I can help Satoko, but it disgusts me to think that they're only using me as a test subject. I've been resenting Irie for that reason. Still, I should try to get closer to him. After all, he's the only person who understands how important I am. He's the main person I should be talking to, and he has the most potential for protecting me. I can't avoid seeking help from him just because I don't like him. I've asked him for help several times before. Tomitake and Takano get murdered even so, and it ruins everything. After their deaths, Irie panics and becomes useless. That's why I gave up on seeking help from him. But in this world, I've been blessed with a positive situation. I will never have as lucky a start at this as again. This is the best chance I'll ever get, so I should give it my best shot. I really don't like him at all. Same. But he's not a bad person, he's just a pedophile. I should respect him more. He's serious about helping Satsuko, and he's not as much of a mad scientist as I'm inclined to think. Takano's a strange person too, but she's also someone who can give me support. But she thinks I'm only her guinea pig. That's why I don't really want her help. Tomitake is more reliable than Takano, but the biggest problem is that he only visits the village a few times a year. On top of that, he always dies before I get killed, so he can never help me. However, they really are the people I should be talking to. If I can change the fate of their deaths, they should be able to save me from my own. It's possible that the only reason I lived until 1983 was because of their effort. Oh?
高野たちに接触して彼らを救えるよう。ああ、どうせ殺されると思ってるから。だから期待を裏切られても全然平気。
リカがひどいことを言ってますのです。
I chuckled at her comment.
もし死の運命から逃れられれば、私の運命に対して大きな影響を与えてくれるのは間違いない。そして今回はそれでも二人が殺されるのを前提。つまり二人が殺された後、私にも及ぶだろう危害への警護についてちゃんとそういう指示を出してくれれば、高野たちの死後も私の身辺は強固に警備されているかもしれない。
The protection they provide is probably the highest standard of security I could hope for. Yet I lose that moment. I lose that the moment Tomitake and Takano die. So I never have their protection after Watanagashi. And therefore I get killed too. In other words, that's it. Whoever possesses the strong will to kill me actually just wants me dead. Yet so long as those two are alive, there's tight security all around Hinamizawa. That prevents the killer from getting to me. So to kill me, they must first kill Tomitake and Takano, the heart of that security. Then my protection falls away, leaving me exposed.
リズムで考えれば考えるほど、そうやって考えると、あの二人を見殺しにした時点で、私の運命は逃れられないものに決まってしまうのかも。
ならリカのすべきことはもう明らかなのです。
そうね、自分の命より先にあの二人の命を救う方が先決ってことね。
It's kind of ironic. I gave up on them because I was more determined to save my own life. But I finally came to the conclusion that I have to help them first before helping myself. But there's something I still don't understand. Someone with convictions this strong is trying to kill me for some equally strong motive. Yet no matter how often I debate it, I can't think of anyone who would benefit from my death. Not only that, but there should only be people who'd want to protect me. especially since they would do anything to protect me in the present environment. They even eliminated my mother. To be perfectly honest, I don't even care about her anymore. I never got along with her, and she's the one who took my father's death the wrong way, making a huge deal out of it like she did. She got what she deserved. I'm a valuable guinea pig for them, and I can be a bomb too. No one benefits from making me explode. There's only disaster awaiting them if that happens. Lots of people will be lost. Nobody would gain anything from that. According to Takano, my death would be like the eruption of a volcano in the middle of the village. Okay, is she like somehow some kind of like carrier for this illness? Like she's a carrier, but she doesn't exhibit the symptoms that the people who suffer from the illness do. So if she dies, the virus gets like spread around to the whole village. That'd be interesting. That'd be interesting. I'm not interested in what happens after my death, but they're really concerned about it. They're watching me every day to ensure that I don't accidentally hit my head on the corner of a block of tofu and die. It's fair to say that they're in here to prevent the eruption from happening. I'd be suspicious of them if they were going to benefit in some way from my death, but as everyone knows, that can't possibly be the case. My death would create nothing but a disaster. They're benefiting from my being alive right now.
損得の問題ではなく、私個人じゃなくて、古出家に対する恨みみたいなものが、伝統的に御三家とかに残ってたりして、
That's why I was suspicious of the three
私が
families.
爆弾だと知らないからこそ殺したと。
Especially the Sonozaki family. However, after observing them in numerous worlds, I feel that's not the case. I felt that way in several lives, but it always had something to do with that incident with Keiichi and the doll. It's clear that there's nothing going on between the Sonozaki family and mine.
あとは狂信的な何者かなのです。
If it's not about profit or a grudge, it might be someone who's secretly a deranged cultist. We've already had a series of murders 4 years in a row under the name of a Yashiro-sama's curse. Timing-wise, it would somewhat interesting. I think we're skipping a word there. It would be somewhat interesting if I, the reincarnation of Yashiro-sama, were killed on the 5th year. Couldn't stand to be murdered for such a whimsical reason, but such a motive actually seemed fitting. Ironically, I would have to suspect Takano if that's the case. She's well known for being an eccentric researcher of local histories. She's only interested in the village's history because she already knows who I am. She's doing the research based on the notion that I'm important, so she should have no reason to kill me. She would desire to keep me close to her as a research sample. It's hard to believe that she would kill her favorite toy. She might be willing to kill someone who would try to harm her little toy, though. You know, that storm outside is getting kind of heavy, so I'm just gonna save real quick, just in case my power goes out. I want to finish this scene before I wrap up the recording, but like that rain's starting to come down, something mad heavy.
まあ、いくら考えてもわからないし、誰かが私を必ず殺す。その事実から逃れられれば、他はとりあえずどうでもいいんだから。
No, I take that back. I want to escape my deadly fate. I also want all of my friends to be happy. And I want the rest of my life to be happy too. I don't want to hide myself in the forest forever just to get away from my murderer. In fact, I've tried that once before, but I still met with the same ending. Living in the forest was a horrible experience. I think I was able to survive until July that time. That might be the longest I've ever lived. I smiled bitterly and finished off the rest of the orange wine in the glass. I'd have to talk to Irie again. I don't like him, but his people are my only hope.
もういい時間、どこに戻らないと。
僕もそう思いますです。おやすみなさいなのですよ。
I lay down and closed my eyes, but I couldn't fall asleep right away. Suddenly I remembered Reina's words out of nowhere. It was no good when I was thinking about it on my own. I wasn't thinking about it on my own. I was talking it out with Hanyu. Now I know. It's important to talk to other people. Friends have greater meaning than I thought. You can talk to them about anything. I finally realized that. After I asked Takano for help, should I also talk to Keiichi? I've told him before in my previous lives, but he never believed me then. But this time you got the perfect start. This time you got the perfect start, right? You got the perfect start. You got the perfect setup. Maybe this is the time he believes. The two of us? Alright, quick tip. Just a quick tip. Come on. Quick tip. Rika today always thought that there were 4 members in her family. She could clearly see all of us, her father, her mother, and me. Okay, so this is from Hanya's point of view. She had no idea that I was invisible to anyone else but her. My appearance is a little different from human beings. I may otherwise look like a person, but I can't hide my horns, so it's obvious that I'm not human. I'd hoped that because Rika had seen me since she was a baby, she wouldn't be bothered by my ugly horns at all. And that hope came true. Just as chicks believe whatever they see first as their parent, Rika accepted me as part of her family as a matter of course. Even though I have these horns, Rika and I have been close ever since the day she accepted me as her family member. I became closer to her than her parents. I couldn't even remember the last time I was able to communicate with someone. We spent all day together. But her family, especially her mother, denied my existence. Since her mother so strongly denied me, Rika and her mother became distant. Rika didn't learn certain things that many children learn from their mothers. That's why I taught her instead. It's kind of ironic how that made her mother resent Rika even more. Oh. Right, because there was that one time, I forget what Rika did, but everyone was like, oh wow, Rika did this, oh, that's so amazing. And her mom's like, I didn't teach her to do that. How did she learn to do that? Rika used to fight with her mother a lot about how she talked. I guess she picked up some bad habits from me. Besides the fact that she didn't get along with her mother, Rika was a pretty normal girl. She was just like Satoko. She loved running around in the woods and doing mischievous things. However, in June 1983, Rika's life was taken. All we want is a happy life for Rika. My power only allows us to search for the path leading to that. It's awful to repeat the same tragedy over and over again. Although it's devastating, we can still find happiness within this endless world. Rika Furure's destiny is a tragic dead end, but I'm secretly enjoying the fact that I get to spend more time with her than what normal people can enjoy. It's not just Rika. They may not see or hear me, but being with Satoko, Mion, Reina, and Keiichi is also very fun. I can never be one of them, but I can still be by their side. How sweet. Yep, and then we go to the clinic.
いやあ、リカちゃんが日曜日以外に診療所にいらっしゃるなんて珍しいですね。
Mm-hmm. Alright, but I do have to save here and wrap it up. Not only is it just that time, I've definitely been recording for plenty of time, but also there is a storm outside, and I want to make sure my recording doesn't get fucked up if I lose power. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this one up here for today. But I'm very into it. I'm very into it. Seeing things from Rika's perspective and how she's seeing things and whatnot, what information she knows going into it. I'm very curious to see, like, if she does actually decide to go to the gang with this and, you know, try to get their help out of it. Very interested to see what comes of that. And, like, if this is what they're trying to set it up to be, like, the cycle where Rika finally breaks free, right? You know, this is Rika's last chance, essentially, because that's pretty much what they've heavily implied about, like, oh, you got the perfect start. If you can't break the cycle through this, you never will. So, like, if this is that final moment where Rika does break the cycle and, you know, overcomes her fate, I'm very curious what then Chapter 8 has in store for us. But like I said, I gotta wrap this one up here for today, so thank you to anyone watching. It's all much appreciated, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Till then, peace.